like 50 people here, but maybe thousands online, thousands and thousands. So I just want to start off by saying thank you for being here. You vote with your feet, right? You're here because you care. The goal is for you to be informed. I was looking, Matt, our goal is to change this statistic from people that are not voting and not educated to move the dial. Again, I just want to do a quick public thank you on behalf of the Chamber. This is a partnership with the Idaho Press, who I'll introduce in a moment. I saw Mayor Kling running around back over there, and a public thank you to Rick and Amy and all the city staff. So this was a collaboration. If I'm going to be honest, it was who's putting together a forum. Everybody looked around and was like, well, we'll just come together and partner and we'll do it. And so while it might not be perfect, it's our best attempt to get information out. So thank you to the candidates, first and foremost, for being brave and willing to serve in our community. And thank you to friends and family for being here. So with that, I will pause. We're going to move fast. But we have a longstanding tradition with the Idaho Press on trying to moderate in partnership with these events. And so it's my privilege to introduce Matt Davison and Teddy Feinberg. They're going to help moderate and lead us today. So please help me welcome Matt and Teddy.
We got an applause, Teddy. We're off to a good start.
It's the first time for everything.
Yeah. A couple of house rules that I want to stress tonight. We have unfortunately had some situations recently with some disruptions in these community forums. I just want to be very clear that there will be a zero tolerance policy on any outburst. And when I say zero, I really mean zero. We have officers here who will immediately remove you from the area. This session is being recorded to be viewed later by thousands, hopefully, of voters in Idaho. So we want to give them as much information and be respectful of the candidates who've taken their time to come here tonight. We're here to hear what they have to say. And unfortunately, we're not here to hear what you have to say. You have to speak with your vote, but here is not the forum for that. So again, zero tolerance on any outbursts, and that will be our call, and we will not hesitate to remove you immediately. So with that, our forum will move very quickly tonight. It's scheduled to go till 9 o'clock. I think we can all agree that we'd like to be out of here before 9 o'clock. And so we're going to try and move through this as quickly as possible. We did invite all of the candidates for all of the races that we're watching here tonight, and some of them chose or could not be here. So they will see their name up there, but they will not be here, obviously. We didn't want to not have someone listed up on the front. And so we will be asking each person to give a 2-minute opening statement, a 1-minute closing statement, and some questions in between that Teddy and I will bounce back and forth. We're not taking questions from the audience tonight. We hope that the ones that we have selected will cover the biggest issues that are the most relevant to voters in Idaho. I want to stress that for voting information, and I appreciate Mitch mentioning our effort, the Idaho Press has put together a comprehensive voter's guide, and I can tell you this gentleman right here, Teddy Feinberg, edited it personally and was working many, many, many hours to get this thing put together. So if you need information, you can find it right here, or as well as idahopress.com/elections. Am I missing anything, Teddy?
I think we're ready to roll.
We're ready to roll. Okay, so we're going to get started with our first panel. This panel is slated to last just quick 15 minutes. So we're going to start with the county clerks, and we are coming out with a fastball question, and this is a one-word answer. So after we have your first opening statement, we're going to get right into the questions. So with that, I'm going to talk with candidate Sandy Bowden. And if I mispronounce your name, don't hesitate to correct me. So Sandy Bowden, would you please open with your 2-minute opening statement? And we have a timer over here, and you will give it at 10 seconds, and then a firm stop, and we will cut you off if you keep going, okay? All right, so Sandy, 2-minute opening statement to you for county clerk.
Hi, I'm Sandy, and I have lived in Nampa. I was born in Nampa, and I was raised here. I graduated from Nampa High, and I graduated from Northwest Nazarene University. I worked at Northwest Nazarene University for 33 years. For the past 12 years, I was the accounting analyst. So I've had some experience with the budget and different office duties in regards to the budget and other things that I would be doing as the clerk. The beginning of March, a friend said I should run for county clerk, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I prayed about it and felt like God wanted me to do that. And so that was why I decided to do that. And so this past month has been a great learning curve. I didn't know anything about the clerk's office, and so I have been researching and studying things online and learning all I could about what the clerk does and the responsibilities that I would have as the clerk. I feel that the more I learn, the more the last 33 years at Northwest Nazarene University has helped me to be able to do this job.
Thank you very much. Moving to you, Mr. Yamamoto.
Thank you. First off, thank you, Press Tribune, Chamber, City of Nampa for hosting this event. And I'm really pleased to be one of the first because, you know, in high school with my last name, I was always the last. So it's nice to be on the front of the program. There was one kid behind me, his name was John Zieber, so he was always the last one. A little bit about my background. My wife Arlene is here. I have 2 boys. My daughter-in-law Kelly is here. Further back, Mom and Dad and 2 of my sisters. So I'm telling you what, that's what it's all about, family, God, family, country. A little bit more about myself. Grew up on the family farm, born and raised here in Idaho. Farmed for multiple years, got into some manufacturing and conducted business in 17 states and 11 different countries. So I'm finishing my 3rd term as county clerk. I want to go one more time because we have some things to do. We have to do some things about property tax, and I think you should be proud to know that Canyon County has been a leader in trying to do some property tax relief. We actually crafted a bill in Canyon County with the assessor's office. We gave that to the Concerned Citizens Group. It went to Bruce Skog. He took it to the legislature this last session. It never got out of a desk drawer. But we're making some headway. We're making some things happen there. So we want to finish that up. The other thing I want to finish is we need to get back on track with elections. With DOJ, ADA, getting kicked out of schools, COVID, we've lost a bunch of polling places, and we need to get that finished. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to stick with the county clerk, and we're going to move on to the questions. So the first question is a one-word answer, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Yamamoto. Who won the 2020 presidential election, Biden or Trump?
Trump.
Not your turn.
Trump.
Thank you. Same to you, Ms. Bowden.
Bowden.
Bowden, thank you.
Trump.
Thank you. Teddy, you want to take the second question?
Ms. Bowden, we'll start with you. Are Idaho elections safe? And if not, what will you do to ensure free and fair elections?
I do not believe that the elections are safe. One thing that we need to do is clean up the voter rolls. Another thing I believe is to get rid of the voting machines. Voting machines are vulnerable, and they will always be vulnerable because they're a machine and anybody can hack it if they know how. So I would go back to paper. There's also, I think that if we do have drop boxes, they need to be on 24-hour surveillance. And I can't think of anything else right at the moment.
On to you, Mr. Yamamoto.
So in the state of Idaho, we have good laws. We have secure elections. Were there some issues in other states? In my view, absolutely there was. Some of it's already been proven. In Canyon County, we have no issues whatsoever. We have had various groups in, and I have been around to various groups speaking just lately about what we do to secure elections here. We don't have drop boxes. I can't secure those anywhere. We don't do that. The machines were not hooked to the internet. They have, we have 3 different sticks, fire sticks, and they are military grade, and we can't be hacked. So we're secure in Canyon County, I have no doubt.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to question number 3. And we're gonna, let's see, we're starting with Mr. Yamamoto at this point. So the question is, what is the ultimate #1 responsibility of an elected county clerk, and how will you be successful in that area if elected?
The problem with that question and that answer is the county clerk has multiple roles, and they're all just about equally as important. Clerk for the Board of County Commissioners, clerk of the district court, auditor, chief budget officer, chief elections officer, indigent welfare, interpreter services, recording and passports, and 130 employees. But if I was to put one thing, I'm going to have to go with two. Elections is the most important thing, and taking care of the taxpayer is right in there with it, and that's what we try to do on a daily basis.
Thank you. Ms. Bowden.
The most important responsibility is, for me, is that I serve the people. And I would serve the people through having secure elections. And if the people do not feel like an election was secure, I would do a forensic audit. And I also would listen to the people on what we need to do about tax relief and reducing the budget.
All right, final question. Ms. Bowden, we'll start with you. Do you believe in support in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation?
Yes, I do. I believe that they're consistent in their ratings and that they have specific goals and ideas, and so therefore they rate everyone against those same specific items.
Mr. Yamamoto,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
do you support and believe in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation?
My answer earlier would have been yes. At this point, my answer is no, and I'll tell you why. You get a perfect score if you vote no on everything. Government cannot function if all you have is no votes. We have to build something, not tear something down. So at this point, my answer is no.
Thank you very much for those answers to those questions. Thank you. We are now going to move to your 1-minute closing statement, and we'll start with you, Ms. Bowden.
I just want to thank you all for coming out and to learn more about the election process. I am new to politics. I'm not a speech giver, and so this is all new to me. I know that my main responsibility is not getting up and giving speeches. I would have to meet with department heads and work with the employees, and that is what I think that I would be able to do well, because I feel that we need to make sure that the county employees are happy and satisfied with their jobs and are willing to stay long-term. We need them, and we do have good employees. So I just would thank you for your vote on May 17th.
Mr. Yamamoto.
All right, what have we done with property taxes in Canyon County? 2 years running, we burnt fund balance. In other words, instead of taking more taxes, we took fund balance down. 2 years in a row now, we've taken no 3%, no foregone, and no new construction. And it's hard to know, it gets complicated, but basically what that has done has handcuffed the county into the future as to what they can tax on property tax. So I'm really happy. You know, we looked it up. In the 11 years I've been in office, we have left $126 million in the community. And $133 million if you count what doesn't go to urban renewal because of what we didn't take. So I'm asking for your vote. We've got some more work to do, and we've done a good job. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We're going to move on to the race for Canyon County Commissioners. So we're going to look over here, and this is our county commissioner race. We've got District 2 and District 3 are up for election this time around. So we're going to move quickly to this. We're a few minutes ahead of schedule. Let's try and keep it that way. Since Connie Constantine is not here, we're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement from Mr. Brad Holton.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mayor Brad Holton, City of Greenleaf. Why am I running for Canyon County Commissioner? Because a lot of people requested me to do so. So to be very clear, I'm running for an office. I'm not running against a person. And so I can bring unique qualities of my experience and background to bear upon the county commission. So to be clear, a mayor and a commissioner are quite two different animals. So as a mayor, I have to make quick decisions, and I'm usually at the end of the line. My decision is it. Commissioners are completely different. We, as a commissioner, just have an opinion. And until another commissioner, 2, votes on something, it's just another person with an opinion. So what I'll bring to the commission is the ability to network and the ability to negotiate, the ability to work towards a solution. Will I get my way? Absolutely. It's not about getting your way. It's about making forward a positive sense for this county that I love. I'm a lifelong resident. I've been married for 45 years to my girlfriend back there on the back row, Laura, which is the first lady of Greenleaf, I guess, technically. But anyway, really, really excited to run against a very qualified person. And so we just have some different avenues that we would bring to the office, and I would say I'm very pleased with this big of a turnout. So this is very, very encouraging to me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. On to the incumbent candidate for District 2 County Commissioners, Carrie Smith. 2-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a little bit while I'm qualified. I started my career at Development Services as a land use planner, moved on to the state. I also was in the IT department, moved on to the state as your state floodplain mitigation coordinator, so I did hazard mitigation. Then moved on to the city of Caldwell, where I was economic development specialist and recruited over 15 of the new businesses that are located in downtown Caldwell. Before that, also as a mother and going to college and working full-time, I started a nonprofit called Destination Caldwell. We are wildly successful. I'm incredibly proud of the success of that organization. We, along with the city of Caldwell, completely rebranded and created an incredible downtown. Through COVID, I was the main person that kept downtown Caldwell open. I supported our businesses. I took what was being considered as guidance from Southwest District Health and pushed every barrier I had and kept those businesses open. I've advocated for each person's right to choose to vaccinate, to mask, and that we're all essential and that we all needed to be open. So when I was elected as county commissioner, I worked to get the seat on Southwest District Health, and I removed those guidance items and I provided data. Data was important so that people could come to conclusions. Again, supporting our free right for choices in our community. And then since I've been on the board, I've done some really cool things. One of them, I love the Lord. I'm passionate about serving the Lord. One of the greatest things that we did, we're in a drought right now. We knew that that was coming in last fall, so we started and we did a local day of prayer and fasting for drought relief. We funded a new Fair Expo building, which again is going to continue to provide economic commerce to our community. Brought the mayors together, doing a growing together kind of philosophy of talking about growth. And that's it. 2 minutes is so fast.
All right, good job, Jill. Thank you for staying on time here. We're going to move on to the District 3. So, Mr. Zach Brooks, 2-minute opening statement, please.
My name is Zach Brooks, and I am running for Canyon County Commissioner of District 3. I was born and raised here. I grew up in Meridian until I was 11 and then moved to Canyon County, so I've lived here for just over 30 years. I'm married for 16 years to my wife Tiffany, and together we have 6 kids, and we homeschool all of them together. I am running because, like Brad, I was asked to run. In prior election years, I've run for the state senate. So I have a heart and a desire to serve my community and my state. At this time, if something doesn't drastically change at the county level, maybe even the state level of government, my own children will probably not be able to afford living here unless I win the lottery or do something drastically different with my livelihood and way of making an income. So those are the primary drivers that have made me decide to run for this office. I graduated from Lewis and Clark State College with a business administration degree with an emphasis in accounting. I have run my own business. I have worked for people. I like to say I've signed both sides of the check. And so in doing so, I am familiar with, regulations, taxes that businesses have to pay. I am familiar with having to make a budget, keep a positive culture and environment for your employees that could go somewhere else and make more money, but because they like the job and they bring friends with them, they continue to stay in that particular position. So those are just a few of the things that I can bring to this position, and I look forward to doing so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Holliday.
Thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Victor Holliday. I'm kind of the lone wolf up here for one reason. I was not born in Idaho. I was born in Mississippi, raised there for 19 years. At 19, I served a mission for my church. And lo and behold, I came to Boise, Idaho on my mission. That's why I fell in love with Idaho. I went to Brigham Young University. I graduated there in 92. In 93, I started a job with the Boy Scouts of America. I worked for them for a little bit, and so in that time, I ran a budget for their summer day camp and also the scout camp up in McCall for those 2 years, and always stayed under budget. So I am familiar with budgets as well. I then left the Boy Scouts because of nonprofit and the money. They let me go. Then I went to work for SpecTech and Micron or MPC, and this is where I started my career as a PC technician, which I've been doing for the past 20 plus years. About 11 years there, they closed the door. I skipped over to the Canyon County. I've been working there for 14 years. I have been married to Linda Holliday, who's been working at the Nampa Rec Center for 20-something years, been married to them for Linda for 30 plus years, love her very much. We believe in our Savior, Jesus Christ, and pray daily. I believe in the freedoms that we have today and want to fight for them hand and foot. I am a boots on the ground type individual. I have worked with many EOs and district directors at the county. I know them very well, and they will tell you that I work hard to make sure that we are continue to work and work hard for the people, and I want to serve this county with all my heart. Thank you very much.
All right, we will open, thank you, first of all, appreciate you. We will open it up to questions now. Question number one, in your opinion, what is the number one challenge facing Canyon County today, and what will you do to fix it? And Mr. Holden, we will start with you. We will move from my left to right. So Mr. Holden, you're up first.
Thank you. That's a good question. So currently for our residential properties, the taxes is the big issue. And really, it's a tax shift. It was inadvertently made in 2016 at the legislature. They took away the indexing. Who was to know this kind of growth was going to happen this many years from then? But what we have and what we see is, as an example, if there's a saying that's true, if all of the city's budgets were frozen at 2017, today in 2021, all of those properties would still be paying more taxes if those cities' budgets were frozen. Why? Because of the transfer of the value. So commercial, as an example, Walmarts are not being bought and sold, but property are. The residential for 2016 is at $423,000 is the average starter home. And so that value is getting transferred from out of the industrial into the residential. Big problem that we have to solve.
How much time do we have?
1 minute.
They always had to, in speech class, they always had to give me maximums. So I needed to know my 1 minute. Okay. So biggest issue, I reported on this in the voter guide. Number one, which I don't think most of us will say, we do have a crisis with mental health and teens. I had no idea I was passionate about this, but in 1 week, Nampa School District had over 8 attempted suicides. We need a teen crisis center and an assessment center. We need to help our youth. We do have growth challenges. As a board member, I've actively been working on this. We are actively working on following standards for approval, not just doing blanket approvals. And we're working on an amended growth comprehensive plan. And then I think another issue, people are always concerned about property tax. I will just continue to advocate that the clerk's office and the Board of County Commissioners have worked very closely together. We just had a report from the assessor today that we had a $10 billion increase in assessment value, and I know that this current body is going to do everything we can to drive that levy rate down. We are not just going to take your money because we can. We are going to do the service that we're required to have to provide to you. Sorry.
You got the minute. You're good. Mr. Brooks, you're up.
The number one thing that I'm hearing is exactly what Mayor Brad Holton just referred to as property taxes. And with that growth, a lot of people don't understand how we continue to grow. So we have a larger population base paying into the county, but yet their property taxes continue to rise. So part of that is, as he mentioned, a legislative debacle that, from unindexing the homeowners exemption, and also House Bill 389. So in part, as a commissioner, I would hope to be able to work with the legislature in the bill that Commissioner Yamamoto or something similar that he mentioned that would help undo both of those things to provide some relief. But if you look at the charts basically industrial and commercial taxes are going down, residential is carrying the burden, and that needs to change.
And on to you, Mr. Holliday.
Thank you. It's the same answer as these other two gentlemen have. I've owned 3 homes in Canyon County and Nampa area, and I keep seeing my taxes do that. And it was an eye-opener to realize that they quit indexing on us. We need to get back into that, and so that the commercial and farmers don't keep going down and we get level with them so we can do that. I really want to try to get that indexing back so we can get some relief around here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to move on to the second question, and we're going to start this time on my right and move right to left so that we're not going in the same order each time. And I will stress that this question is related to how county commissioners work with local cities. So you have 1 minute to answer. Here's the question. How should Canyon County commissioners work with local cities to manage growth in the county? Mr. Holliday, you have 1 minute.
That's a very interesting question. Dealing with that, Kerry Smith here started a good thing in working with the mayors. I always thought that they all need to be involved with all of this growth that's going on around us so that we can all maintain it or try to figure out what we can do to help the growth in all of our areas, just not in one particular area. Until we do, some people are going to suffer more than others in the growth, and we need to try to work together to maintain that growth in our whole county, not just around the cities and such.
Thank you for that. Mr. Brooks?
There has to be open lines of communication. It has to be a collaborative effort between leadership in the cities and the leadership in the county. And you have to show up to be able to be a part of that, to have those conversations. And in this particular seat that we are running for, there's a lack of that. So the first step is showing up so that you can have those conversations, so you can find out just exactly what is going on at the city level, what they are deciding to do within their boundaries, and how that affects the county. For instance, the majority of the growth is happening inside of city limits and the impact areas rather than actually outside of those areas in the county. So it's very imperative that county commissioners be involved with the cities when it comes to growth.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Smith?
Yes, so I love this question because I'm a doer, so I'm not going to tell you what I would do, I will tell you what I did do, and that was what Victor said. when I took office, I got support from my fellow commissioners. We started like kind of a lunch meeting where we invited all the mayors. Today was one of those days. We had record attendance. We had 8 of our mayors come. So that, I think, is a testament to the quality of the meeting. We're having true conversations about managing our growth. The jail, my dad was the former sheriff. We have a problem. Our jails are full. That's a conversation that we need to solve as a community. And so we're having those hard conversations together. That's really important. And showing up, like Zach said, hearing from our mayors what they need and then supporting those efforts wherever we can, hearing from them and helping them. And that's what I do.
Thank you, Mr. Holton.
So I'm the president of the Treasure Valley Partnership, which is all of the mayors and all of the commissioners in Ada, Canyon. There's some in Elmore and Owyhee. And so the coordination with other public entities is a must. And so as a commissioner, it's true that the growth is 95%, and I don't know that that's an exaggeration, in the city limits, and 5% of the growth currently is in the county. So the county and the cities need to really coordinate together. And why do you have growth like that? Is because with all of the regulations now, they really need to be connected into public utilities. And if you just had spot isolated developments out in the county, where is their water, where is their sewer? And eventually, we're going to run out of good quality water. And so how we grow is going to be very important for our future.
Thank you very much. Question 3. Recently, there was an ugly disagreement between a commissioner and several elected Canyon County officials. Do you agree or disagree on how that situation was handled and why? And Ms. Smith, we will start with you on this one. We're going to go Ms. Smith, Mr. Holden, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Holliday. So Ms. Smith, you're up first.
So that's a politically charged question, and it does exist. I will stand by that we cannot share the personnel problems that existed with Commissioner Van Beek. And you had 8 elected officials that signed a letter, and we knew that there was a pending election. We knew that it could be a political nightmare. We cannot share the personnel issues. And so I would encourage you to think that there was elected officials that put their neck on the line to say that there was a problem. We asked in quiet without it going public. I'm not sure who released it, to give her grace. And I wish that our prosecuting attorney and our sheriff would do more that they said that they would do. And they're putting us in an awkward position, but I wish I could share more.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Holden.
So the most I'm going to say is that the situation is disheartening. What I know is I don't know. And so the potential is you don't burn bridges. So the reality of it is tonight, I could be voted in and Pam White could be voted in and Leslie Van Beek is still there. And it would be foolish and stupid of me as a future commissioner to even step into this at all. I just don't know, and I'm not going to burn bridges. I want to go forward and build working relationships with these people. And for me, let bygones be bygones. I'm going to pick up where I get started in January, and we're going to go positive forward from there. That's what I have to say about it.
Mr. Brooks.
Would you restate the question so
There was recently an ugly disagreement between a commissioner and several elected Canyon County officials. Do you agree or disagree on how that situation was handled and why?
I don't need to even see, I guess, the particulars, like jumping into the mud. From a 30,000-foot view, I absolutely disagree with how it was held, because when you release a letter like that, you deny somebody due process. You release that letter, and what it does is it tells that person, you're guilty, now go prove your innocence. That's Mexico. That's not the United States. Okay, so I absolutely disagree with it. I wish it had never been released. And maybe this is, my lack of wisdom. Mr. Holden has more of that than I do, but I'm very big on due process. If you're going to come out with a letter like that, you surely had better come out with the backup and the proof for why that letter was released. Otherwise, this is a really awkward situation, and it does deny the commissioner in this aspect due process.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And Mr. Holliday, you are up.
Thank you very much. So I have kind of advantage with Carrie. I do work at the county, and it's a tough situation as a county employee to see this come across our building, and as a member of this community. I'm with Brad Holt on this. My opinion isn't a factor in this because I continue to work with them. I enjoy working with every one of these commissioners, and I want to continue that relationship because I think they do a great job all around, and that's where I'm going to leave it at that tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to our lightning round questions. We're doing a great job. We're a little ahead of schedule. So with that, I'm going to start with Mr. Brooks and then go to Mr. Holliday and then Mr. Holton and Ms. Smith. This is another one-word answer. Who won the 2020 presidential election, Trump or Biden? Mr. Brooks, to you.
As Mr. Stalin once said, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes.
One-word answer.
Biden.
Thank you. Mr. Holliday.
I like to say Trump, but Biden won too.
Thank you. Mr. Holden.
Go with Mr. Holliday's answer.
Okay. Ms. Smith.
Trump.
Thank you.
All right, last question. I'm trying to remember what order we're in. I believe I'm going to go Ms. Smith, Mr. Holton, and then Mr. Brooks and Mr. Holliday. Do you support and believe in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation? Ms. Smith, you are up.
What I believe is they believe in educating the public on free markets and the principles of liberty, and I believe in that.
Mr. Holton.
So it's not a simple question, or is it a simple answer? I used to, but until I worked with the legislative branch of the Idaho Association of Cities this spring and read in detail the bills that many of those people were writing, it was at a junior high level, and I was very disconcerted, really blown out of the water of that level. So to make a big splash and then not follow through with something concrete that the legislature can actually do and pass, who cares if it sells papers and it makes you look good? We need a legislature that can build something and have some connectedness and not finger pointing.
Mr. Brooks, you are up.
I don't know what the mission is. Like, do you have a copy of it to read to us?
Not on me, no.
Okay, so I personally don't know what it is. What I do know is I've read the metric for how they grade legislation, and I do like that. As far as the personalities and who they go after and who they don't. 6 years ago, I put a lot of stock into it. Now, I don't as much. I think it's a good tool in the tool bag, but as far as it being the hammer or the sledgehammer answer all, be all answer all, I don't believe so. So, interesting question.
And Mr. Holliday, you're up.
I believe mission statements are very important, but I also believe as you as a person will pick and choose on that mission statement what you are and what you want to do. I believe they have a very good idea, but we're going to pick and choose how we look at that mission statement and what they stand for and those individuals they do. And so I would say yes and no on that, and I know it's a political answer, but that's what I'd say.
Okay, at this time, I want to thank all the candidates for County Commissioner and County Clerk. That's our first panel. It is now concluded, so we're going to take a very brief break and get some candidates up here for District 10. And so thank you for your time attending. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hold on. I forgot to close. That's my fault. I forgot to close. You each get 1 minute to close in the County Commissioner race. My bad. Thank you, Mitch. The first error. I'll pay my fine later. So we're going to go backwards. Since we had opening from left to right, Mr. Holliday, you have a 1 minute closing statement, and we'll move through.
Well, my name is Victor Holliday. I'm running for Canyon County Commissioner in District 3. My main word is serve the people. As I serve the employees of Canyon County, I work hard for them. I work hard for the commissioner's director. My 14 years there kind of gives me a head start that when I step into office from day one, I don't have to know anybody. I know them already and ready to go to work. I will be present, I'll be transparent, I'll be accountable, and I will be available for you to talk to when I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, my name is Zach Brooks. I'm running for Canyon County Commissioner, District 3. Thank you for being here. I was hoping that we'd have a few more questions directly related to the commissioner's race so that you could see a larger differentiation between the candidates. I wish the incumbent would have shown up so that you could see that differentiation. But as Victor said, we will show up. I will show up. I've shown up to every single forum that I've been asked to arrive at this far. I'm the only one that brings not only private sector employment, but also running a successful, profitable business in that leadership and that experience to this office in this particular race. I have a Facebook, I have a website. I please encourage you to visit those or find me afterwards here during the break, and I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. I would also encourage you to check my website, keri2c.com, KERI2C.com. And lifelong resident of Canyon County with parents that served the public. I'm going to serve the public. I'm passionate about it. I love you. I love our community. I'm going to keep fighting for you. I'm going to do things that you might question, like the Commissioner Van Beek issue, because I love our community and I am going to do hard things even when there was a time on the health board to increase the amount of freedoms that you had and fight for our rights. I'm going to do hard things for you. I have a history of it. Hard things like revitalizing downtown Caldwell when even my dad said, don't waste your time. He meant it with love, but you tell me no, and I'm going to figure out a way for you because it means something to you and it means something to me. And I'll just keep fighting for you because I love you. I truly do.
Mr. Holden.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. So I'm probably the longest term political elected official in the room at 27 years. And I have a lot of ground that I've traveled. And I would like to bring that to bear on the county commissioner's position. I know I can make a difference. I love this county. I've been in business for 45 years. I've been on nonprofit boards for 30. And I've been elected 7 times as mayor. And you don't do that in a small town because your word isn't any good. So if I give you what I'm going to tell you I'm going to do, I'm going to follow through on that. And what I'm going to tell you I'm going to do as a commissioner, I'm going to collaborate with my other 2 commissioners. We are not going to agree all the time, but we are going to work for the best solution for the county. Whether it's what I like or not, it's what's going to be best for the county.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Let's give our candidates a round of applause and move on to District 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick housekeeping things. Again, we have some new faces here. Thank you for being here on behalf of the Nampa Chamber, the city.
think so.
Jay Snyder, have him take a seat, please. Good, Chief Huff. Good job back there. Thank you to our officers for being here. We have some people that came in since we got started at the beginning, so sorry to repeat, but Mitch from the Chamber, this is partnership with the City of Nampa, the Chamber, and Idaho Press. Restrooms are around the corner. I was asked that. There is open seating out in the lobby for some extra seating. And then again, all the candidates have their materials out front. So if you want more information after they're done speaking, please go get that. And then Amy just gave us an update. I think there's about 100 people listening and watching online right now. So that's way cool. So the goal of this is to become more informed so we're educated voters. So enough from me. With that, introduce our moderators today. So Matt and Teddy from the Idaho Press. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. And I just wanted to thank the city again one more time for putting this great forum on. It's amazing how much work they pulled all this together with all the technology and the recording. So certainly appreciate that, Mayor Kling and your staff. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a no tolerance policy for comments from the gallery. We're here to listen and learn from those candidates running for office. And I'll just state again that we want to hear from them and not from you. So please refrain from any outbursts or any conversation, and let's be respectful of the time. We're going to use a very similar format to our last round. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement, followed by a series of questions with a 1-minute close that I won't forget this time. We've got District 10 represented here, and on the left side of your panel is your candidates for Senate, and then we have House Seat A in the middle and B on the right. So that is going to be the rotation. We're going to go left to right with our opening statements. Did I forget anything?
No, you're on target.
We're good? Okay. All right, so with that 2-minute opening statement, please refer to Jill from the Chamber. She will give you a heads up if you're over time. She'll give you a 10-second warning and a hard stop, and we will cut you off if you keep talking. So just keep that in mind. So with that, let's get started with opening statements from Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Nampa Chamber. Thank you, citizens, for showing up and being actively involved and caring. It really does matter when you show up and you become informed. My name is Scott Brock. I'm an Idaho native, originally from Emmett. I left, did some military work, spent some time traveling around the world, and during my retirement years, I decided to move back to Idaho. I brought with me a wife that I've been with for 18 years, who I love dearly, and I can tell you that during this election process, I finally found my real battle buddy. So she's been there for me the whole time. We have 2 kids. One is a sophomore in high school at Middleton High School. The other one is a junior, I believe, at the University of Kentucky. She is an academic standout from Middleton High School and received a full-ride academic scholarship to UK, and she's doing fantabulous. I currently live in Middleton. I own a few businesses there, including a Middleton Gazette newspaper. I own a Star newspaper, and I own a fencing company, and I do real estate. I have a small security and investigations firm. So I'm in this race due to an outcry from local folks within the district looking for effective representation that would listen and engage with that local level city officials. So that comes from Star and Middleton. The outpouring was great, and I was asked to step up and run in this race. So I'm here to perform effective representation for District 10.
Thank you. Ms. Nichols, your 2-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening, and appreciate everybody that put in the effort to put this on. I'm Tammy Nichols. I'm currently a representative in, used to be District 11. Now we're in District 10, and I've been in the House for 4 years. I was born and raised in Boise, and began working when I was 6 years old. My family had private schools and businesses that I helped in, and so I learned early the necessity of hard work and a good work ethic. I returned back to school when my children were in school. I have 5 children, 3 that have already graduated from Middleton, and 2 that are still in the high school, and 1 that is over in Eastern Oregon right now, going to Eastern Oregon University. I've lived in Middleton for almost 20 years, and I completely enjoy the rural way of life. I am a proven conservative and have received several awards for my conservative voting record, both in policy and fiscal areas. I've also received several awards for my dedication to God, country, and family. I am known throughout the state as a peopletician, and I have people from all over the state that contact me to help them in various areas that they're needing. I serve as a director for women in government and as a state leader for the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. And I also work as a governmental consultant for several local and national organizations and several media outlets, including the Epic Times. I believe that people need to be part of the governmental process and that government is there first and foremost to protect the rights of the individual and to uphold the Constitution. I uphold my oath of office and am here to lobby for the people that cannot afford a lobbyist. I want to continue to serve and to be a voice for those that are in our state, a voice that cares, a voice that matters, and a voice that stands for liberty, freedom, and truth. Changes are needed in the Idaho Senate. I bring knowledge, experience, and the ability to lead the Senate in a positive direction for the people of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. On to District 10, House Seat A. Rachel Hayslip is not able to attend tonight, so Mr. Moyle, you have a 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Moyle, and I want to thank the Chamber and the City of Nampa for putting this on. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce you to my beautiful wife, Janet, in the back. She's the boss, so if you ever want to know who the boss is in our home, that's Janet. We have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. We have a 9th grandchild coming in September, and my daughter does not appreciate any of the boy names I've presented to her, so hopefully we can find one we can agree on, but I don't know that she's going to give me much say. I farm for a living. I farm from north of Nampa on Midland up through to Middleton, across Middleton to Star and Eagle. We also have a farm in eastern Idaho and another farm in northern Idaho. We raise crops from mint to timber, from cattle to grain, wheat, and a lot of corn. Very blessed. We also have some storage units and some other business that we're involved in. Currently serve on the Middleton Water Irrigation Company. In the past, I've served on the Far West Spearmint Committee, and I've also served as a fire commissioner. Those of you that know me know that my big forte is taxes. I think that Idaho taxes are too high. If you've watched what I've done, you know that I've provided more tax relief than anybody in Idaho history that's been a legislator. And if you watch what I do, I think that I have proven that I have the ability to bring people together and find solutions to problems. And if people will reelect me, I can assure you that I can help bring solutions to the problems such as property taxes, our schools, the growth, and the water issue to the valley. With that, I hope that you can support me, Mike Moyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyle. On to House Seat B. We'll start with you, Ms. Ferner.
Thank you. I also want to thank everyone for being here. It's amazing to see the groups that just get larger and larger and larger as we continue to speak at these arrangements. And thank you for the support to even have us talk. My name is Beverly Ferner. I am running for District 10, House Seat B. I am not a lifelong politician. I actually have been on the city council in Middleton. I was on there for 6 years. That kind of created this bug of, interest into politics. Because if you would have told me 15 years ago I'd be even looking at this role, I would have said how silly you are, because that wasn't my life. But I've really fallen in love with the political possibilities. Campaigning's not that fun, sorry, but being able to be there and do other things is, and definitely a compassion for me. I'm in healthcare for 40-something years, and I do things just a little differently than politicians. I think we need to work on mental health. We need to do something for our suicide rate in this state. It makes me crazy that we have a high suicide rate in this state where we should not have. And bullying is another one of my top 5 candidates that I do. I wish I could say I was born in Idaho. I wasn't. I was born in Southern California. Sorry. But I've been here for 30 years and in Middleton for 11. I have 2 boys. One is married in Caldwell with no grandbabies yet. That's still a problem. I want grandbabies one day. And then my other son is disabled and at home, so he suffers with mental illness. So that's me in a nutshell. I am honored just to be here and to have this opportunity. I also was asked to do these roles, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferner. Mr. Skog, 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the Press Tribune and to the Chamber for putting this on. These are important because we need to vet the candidates. I, too, am here to decide who I'm going to vote for in some of these races that are talking about tonight. I'm a fifth-generation Idahoan. I have my wife, Debbie, here tonight of 36 years almost, and my grandson who's helping me, Michael, age 6. He's passing things out for me. So take one of those if you would. He gets a reward of milkshakes if he does a good job. But I have a law firm, a 6-member law firm here in Nampa. Before that, I was a deputy prosecutor, putting criminals in prison, and I enjoyed that when I first got out of law school. And I have a small land company for investments on land, and that my wife and I have done together for many years also. And Nampa's been a great place for me to live in Canyon County. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. I don't want to be anywhere else, except in the winter sometimes, maybe someplace warm. But, I served in this very seat for 6 years. 4 of those years I was president of this council, and 4 of those years we were the best-run city fiscally in the nation according to Wallet Hub, and that's continued on with this good council and mayor in Nampa. They're doing a good job here. Then I decided I was going to retire and hang out with the grandkids as I started having the grandkids. We have 6 and 1 on the way. Well, a month later, I was asked to run for office. There was an open seat, so I took it, ran, and I found out that I had some skill that I didn't realize. I didn't know it was so hard to pass bills, and I guess I set some kind of record in passing bills into law as a freshman. And most of those bills chipped away at the powers of government or those great big international corporations in some way or another. I didn't get to pass everything, but I think I did well for my constituents, and I listened. And one of my constituents was Hubert Osborne, and he helped me with 2 of those bills. They were his ideas. We'd made them law. I hope you'll vote for me. My name is Bruce Skog.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to open it up for our first question. I'm going to start with Mr. Skog, then swing it to Ms. Ferner, Mr. Moyle, Ms. Nichols, and then Mr. Brock. So, Mr. Skog, you're up. Question number 1, what's your solution or solutions to high property taxes facing homeowners in our state?
1 minute answer, please.
I proposed a bill with the help of many people in Canyon County to re-index the property taxes so that they would be based on your homeowner average of your property, just for the homeowners. And we had over 40 co-sponsors in the House, and I thought, well, this is going to pass. I'm pretty good at this thing. And no, we couldn't get a hearing because the chairman of that committee would not hear the bill for his own reasons. And he's a good man, but he should have heard that bill because it was popular. It was popular around the state. So that's still my solution, is to re-index, put us back where we were about 7, 8 years ago, and your homeowner property tax exemption would be between $175,000 this year, maybe $200,000 next year if things keep going that way. And that's real property tax relief. If there's a better idea out there, I'll go for it. But right now, I think that's the best thing we could do.
Ms. Ferner.
Thank you. I think we did make some progress in legislation this year with property taxes. However, we have a long way to go, and it doesn't feel like relief to us. It doesn't, man, when I saw my tax bill, it didn't look like a relief. And with everyone moving into this area, I don't think we can stop that. We do need to find out a way to make the property taxes more accessible and more easy to understand for us, and a way to lower them. It's a budget, and we all have to have a balanced budget. So we're going to have to take from somewhere to put somewhere else. But I think there are a lot of avenues in there that can move money around to give us a property tax relief. I also agree that it should be the main homeowners. And if you own 6 or 10 rentals here, I don't think you should get that for every single one of them. So property owners on their own. Thank you.
Mr. Moyle.
Thank you very much. When it comes to property tax, I think it's important for all of us to understand that it's collected locally and spent locally. The legislature doesn't collect any property tax, it doesn't spend it. So when the legislature starts making laws and stepping on the local government's feet, there's this local control issue that causes people to be concerned. So I think going forward with property taxes, I think you got to think outside the box. I do think the legislature's doing things. I brought 3 bills last year that passed, one which will shift the public defenders away from the counties to the state. That will save Canyon County about $5 million. One that prevents people from having more than one homeowner's exemption. We have people with multiple homeowners exemptions, which raises your taxes. And one that allows the cities, if they choose to provide property tax relief. They didn't have that ability before. Going forward, though, if you saw what happened at the end of the session, we brought in the cities and counties trying to think outside the box to find something that's bigger and gets more done. And I think that if I'm reelected, you will see us continue to have those discussions as we try to find something that answers the question in a big way instead of the little nips around the edges that we've been doing.
Ms. Nichols?
Thank you. I serve on the Rev and Tax Committee, and I've been on there for 4 years, and we have seen some good things that have come about, but I think that there's a lot more we can do. I was one of the co-sponsors on Representative Skogg's bill, and it was brought to us by our constituents. So we were listening to our constituents and their desires and needs that they had in regards to property taxes. And I have encouraged Representative Skogg to please bring that bill back because I think it's a good solution that will give some immediate relief to taxpayers. There are other areas that we can also look at. So budgets do drive taxes. I think we need all parties at the table on both the city, the county, and the state level. I think if we can coordinate that effort together, that we can come back with some better solutions for everyone that's involved. Impact fees are also something that a lot of people have interest in, and that is something that can be utilized. Currently on the code, we do have the ability to implement those impact fees. They just have to be done according to Idaho law. So I think we have a lot of areas that we can cover, and we can be able to do it.
Mr. Brock?
Thank you, I appreciate it. So property tax has been something that I've been working on for about 4 years. I've had more or less the same plan on my website for 4 years. Number one includes impact fees for schools. If we can get impact fees for schools, we can, potentially in certain areas, do as much as a 30% reduction in our individual property tax. So that will take away the bonding need that comes to residents. Number two is an overhaul of the circuit breaker, and not just, as Mike said, trimming around the corners. Where we're at now with inflation and property values, the scale is wrong. We're at 31,000-ish is the top rate. That needs to be somewhere around the $50,000 mark, somewhere in the 50s. So circuit breaker needs a complete overhaul based on inflation. We're going to freeze the assessments of anyone over the age of 65. I think that will help our elderly, and I think it's a positive step forward. I'm also going to create a sliding scale for veterans on their property tax.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second question. And before I do that, I just want to define one of the words in here so that we all know what we're talking about. Local option tax is a situation where a community votes to tax themselves on something they need in their community. Currently, that is not an option for our municipalities in Idaho. So, Mr. Moyle, I'm going to go to you for this question, and then I'm going to go to Ms. Ferner, Skogg, and then Brock and Nichols. Here's the question. Should local option tax be made available to all municipalities, and should local city governments be trusted with it? Do local governments know best? Mr. Moyle, 1 minute response, please.
Good question. I'm not a fan of local option taxes, and let me tell you why. All it is a new tax. It's increasing your sales tax. I think that we need to live within our means. In Idaho, we're one of the higher taxed states in the nation, and I'm concerned if we add another tax on top of that, it will cause us some issues. So I'm not a big fan of local option taxes. I think there are other revenues we can do to provide our locals more revenue, including higher impact fees, for example, and things down that road where we help push the cost of the growth onto those new people moving here and not tax the existing citizens here. You also, when you have a local option tax, you have a problem. So say Middleton has it and Star doesn't. You're going to see people change their spending habits and go to the place that doesn't have it. And I don't think we want to do that either. You just incentivize businesses. You put those businesses that are stuck under that new tax at a disadvantage to those surrounding them. So I'm not a big fan of local option sales tax.
Thank you, Mr. Morrell. Ms. Ferner.
I'm also not a fan of that, even though I do trust the cities to run their own budgets and have that option. I think raising that tax, again, would create them going elsewhere. Even currently, you can go to Oregon and you don't have any sales tax. So we have quite a few people that shop here, but also go their big shopping over to Oregon because there is no sales tax. I think that would be an interesting game to do, maybe even on just groceries. I think that's hard. So I would say no to that answer. I don't think it's a great option for someone, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skogg. 1 minute response, please.
No, I do trust local government. I was one right here. However, I will always make it more difficult to raise taxes, and this is another way to raise taxes. With that caveat, I've always listened to my mayor and council as elected officials. I've always been centered around Nampa. So I will continue to listen to them, but I also have now Star and Middleton if I'm elected to District 10 in this new district. So I'll be listening to 3 councils and 3 mayors when I'm making decisions, including on this, though you know my bias is no.
Thank you. Mr. Brock?
I'm going to follow along with Bruce, and I have had conversations with local officials at the county level, and they have, it is something that was brought up to me by them. And as you do more and more research on it, I do feel that it's probably going to be a hard no for me at this point. Again, representing cities is really what we do within a district, and like Bruce said, we do have 3 at this point, kind of loosely with Nampa. So you're going to listen to the officials. I do respect them, and we passed a bill recently that kind of capped taxes for cities, and it hurt our cities. Our cities lost out on police officers. So I'd like to give them responsibility, but I think on the option tax right now, I think keeping it at resort level is fine.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Ms. Nichols?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go along with everyone else. I don't feel that local option tax is the best avenue to utilize. I believe that it does incentivize other areas and drives business away from some and that they don't stay where we want the businesses to be because they can pay less tax. I think we need to look at other options. We can look at our urban renewal and see where that's taking us and how that tax is being applied. I believe that we can also get rid of the grocery tax, and I think that would help people a lot. Again, budgets drive taxes, and so we need to be able to work with our local municipalities and to be able to address the needs that they have, but also make sure that we're living within our means and in our budget. And so I don't feel that local option is the best solution to that issue.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Okay, next question, Teddy.
I'm going to start with Ms. Nichols, go to Mr. Brock, bring it over to Mr. Skog, and wrap up with Ms. Ferner and Mr. Moyle. Question number 3. According to 97,000 Idahoans, our state has not properly funded education, which resulted in an initiative on the ballot in November. Do you agree or disagree with this effort to increase education funding in Idaho? Ms. Nichols.
Thank you. I agree with the effort that they have the ability to try to run an initiative on whatever issue they may want to, but I don't agree that we're not funding education. We actually spend a lot of money on education in a lot of different ways. I don't serve on the education committee, but I am involved. Education is what actually brought me into this whole realm. But we are putting a lot of money into education. I think we need to look at how we're spending that money. And we want to make sure that the funding follows the student. And so I'm a firm advocate of school choice. I believe school choice is a good option to have. I think it incentivizes other schools to raise the bar. And I believe it gives parents the ability to be able to determine what's best suited for their children in education and to take that money and use it how they see fit.
Mr. Brock?
Yeah, so I've been watching the initiative process, and we sort of knew that was going to come. They were going to continue to bring it back, and I think the real answer to that one's going to be on the voters if they get it on the ballot. So the voters of Idaho will be the real answer to that. From there, we'll have to adjust at the state level. I'm not an advocate of defunding our public education. I'm just not. I know that I have some differences with my opponent on how we look at schooling and how we fund it. She's been pretty hard on funding for education. I'm a trim the fat kind of guy, but I'm also not a cut the bone and muscle kind of guy. So I want to make sure that our children in Idaho have the opportunities that they need through funding. I'm not also willing to give a carte blanche either.
Mr. Skog, over to you.
Thank you. I kind of like that bone and muscle and flesh analogy. I like that a lot. I have not read the proposed initiative, so I won't address it directly. I want K through 12 schools to succeed in Idaho. We have been funding them additionally each year as a state, but then I look at this, it says we're 49th or 50th in the funding per pupil, and I can't remember the number. Representative Moyle might remember the number, but we increased a large percentage for our schools this year. Still, we need to properly fund the schools, the school buildings. If we do impact fees, I was talking with the the head of the Middleton schools, the superintendent there, he says, impact fees would help, but that's not going to build a school. It's not enough to build a school. So we have to figure out a way to change the funding. I don't have the answers for that today, but we're facing Medicaid expansion that is going to kill us through one of these initiatives financially, and it's growing. It's going to go past the schools in funding, and we've got to stop that or slow it down.
Ms. Ferner.
Thank you. And don't do the muscle thing, because then I'm going to have to suture it, and then I'm going to have to take care of you. So no, thanks. I think the initiative has the right to be on the ballot. I think our voters have the right to discuss what they want to discuss when they need to. I don't think that we should say, oh no, we don't want to talk about that. Education is our future, and because those are the kids that are going to be taking care of you and I sooner than not. I think that, I just lost my thought, I apologize. I think we do need to look at how that budget is created. Schools did get a lot of money if you look at just the money. But if you look at all the things that it has to go to, that is a lot. And I am pro impact fees for schools because I think it will help start funding some of the schools we need. Thank you.
Mr. Moyle.
Thank you. I also support the initiative process, but the initiative they're proposing before you, I don't know how many people realize it'll make you the second highest income tax state in the nation. Second highest in the nation. That's not good for business. That's not good for Idahoans at all. And it'll generate, I believe, about $350 million. To give you an example of how much extra or increased funding we did for education this year at the state level, it was over $300 million. So we increased education funding this year to the tune of almost what that initiative would create. That initiative's not a good idea for you, those of you sitting in this room, but I do support the process. I think education's important in Idaho, and I think we can do more for education. I think if you watch the legislature every year, the #1 funding is schools. It's usually the #1 increase like it was this year with the $300+ million, and you'll see that next year. We did some things to help our teachers this year. They're gonna get about a 9.5% increase. They're going to get a $1,000 bonus when they go to school next year. Those are all good for education. I also think that we need more school choice. Parents ought to have the ability to choose, and they ought to have more options, which I think will also help our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyle. We are a little ahead of schedule, so we're going to move on to our lightning round questions. We're going to keep these very brief. Some of them are one-word answers. We have a few. I'm going to start with one we've already heard a few times tonight. Let's start with Ms. Ferner, and then go to Mr. Skog, and then Mr. Brock, Ms. Nichols, and Mr. Moyle. Okay, so the question is, who won the 2020 presidential election, Trump or Biden? Ms. Ferner. Trump. Mr. Skog.
I'm not sure.
One-word answer.
Trump.
Thank you. Mr. Brock.
I'm sorry?
Questions to you. Who won?
Trump.
Trump?
Trump.
Do we have time to expound or just
No,
Trump?
one-word answer.
Trump then.
I think it speaks volumes. Thank you for that. Second question. We're going to start with Ms. Nichols on this one. Do you support and believe in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation? Yes or no? Ideally, one word. This is the lightning round.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brock.
No.
Mr. Skog.
Yes.
Ms. Ferner.
Maybe.
Mr. Moyle.
Sometimes.
Okay, this has come up a few times tonight, so I wanted to add this into our lightning round. We've talked about impact fees, and to clarify, in the state of Idaho, new construction is allowed to charge impact fees on lots of different things to pay for roads and many different infrastructure needs, except for schools, which is why we have bonds. So the question is, do you support adding schools to impact fee laws that allow schools to be paid for by development? Let's start with Mr. Skog and just go straight right to left.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ferner.
Yes.
Yes,
Moyle.
but you need a constitutional amendment to do it.
Thank you. Ms. Nichols.
Yes, ditto to Mr. Moyle.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, this question has not come up tonight, but I think it's one that many have asked about and are curious. We're going to start this time with Mr. Brock and move from left to right. And I'll let you expand on this briefly. Try and keep your answer to maybe 30 seconds or less. Is critical race theory being taught in Idaho?
So I've been in 3 schools, and I've met with 3 different superintendents, and I've asked for curriculum in 3 different schools, And so far, the evidence and facts that have been presented to me has been zero. I have not been to every school. But the 3 that I've been in, the 3 superintendents I've met with, the 3 curriculums that I've pulled, I have not found it.
Ms. Nichols.
Critical race theory is being taught. It is not in every school or every district, and it's not in a just a curriculum called critical race theory, but it's being taught in different avenues. I've had many parents that have given me information. I've experienced that with my own children, and so it is being taught, just not in the way that everybody thinks it is.
Thank you. Mr. Moyle.
I haven't seen it in the grade schools so much. I've heard stories, haven't been able to prove it, but more so in the colleges. Some of the university classes, when you look at some of those curriculum, I have students that come up to me to stuff, and I think maybe in the universities, but I don't know them for sure.
Thank you. Ms. Werner.
I agree. The education in the elementary school and middle school, I have not seen that. However, in colleges, I have seen.
Thank you. Mr. Skog.
Again, Middleton superintendent says if we taught that in my school, I'd pull my kids out. So I think in K through 12, it's happening on rare occasions, but not much. I'm more concerned about the Hate America crowd and the Hate Our History crowd, whatever you want to call that. And that is out there, specifically in our universities. I have my own daughter that went through it, and other people that have gone through it. That tunnel of oppression they had to walk through at the BSU when Trump won the race with people screaming F words at my daughter. Now, that's not right. I'm not paying for that kind of garbage. So you'll see me vote no on the university budgets until they change the attitude towards our American history.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We're going to move on to closing statements. So you have a 1-minute close here. We're going to wrap this up a little bit early for District 10. I'm going to start with Mr. Skog since we went that other way before. So we're going to move from right to left with 1-minute close. Mr. Skog, your turn.
Thank you, and thank you for being so efficient on the time. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So you'll hear different politicians as we go around going to say, I'm going to do this, going to do that. Well, what have they done? What have they done in their community? What have they done in the legislature if they're serving there? So I hope I've been good enough to be reelected by all of you. Respectfully, I ask for your vote. I've been in the fight on many issues that showed up in your paper. And that wasn't my intention to be in the paper, but it just happened because I didn't shy away from those thorny issues that my constituents wanted confronted. So again, thank you for voting for me last time. I hope you'll vote for me again. And to my friends in the blue, I always back the blue.
Thank you, Mr. Skog. Ms. Ferner.
Thank you. And again, thank you for being here and staying and listening and participating in our lives as well. I am a nurse practitioner. I'm a healthcare provider. I have different menus maybe or venues of looking at mental health issues, suicide rates, and decreasing the bullying that is in our schools currently. I was asked by one of the educational groups about what's the worst thing about our high schools now? 9 of my friends who teach in the high schools in this county said bullying. 9 out of 10 are concerned about that first. That's not an okay answer. So yes, we have property taxes. Yes, we have education. Yes, we have roads. We have infrastructures, tons of other things. But I'd like the opportunity to bring in healthcare and healthy people into Idaho and District 10 candidate. Thank you.
Representative Moyle.
Thank you. I'm going to make it clear that I love Idaho. We have a lot of growth here because Idaho has something that everybody wants. And I want to keep it the way it is. I don't want to change it. And I think I've proven through the years that I can do that. I think I've proven that when it comes to solving problems from property taxes to water to schools to growth, that I can help solve those problems. And I want to keep Idaho the way it is. I'm Mike Moyle. I'm running for District 10. I love this state, and I hope that you can support me. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Nichols.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time tonight. I am again Representative Nichols running for Senate in District 10. And one of the things that I wanted to do when I first ran, where I saw a need, is that we needed to reconnect the people back to the government. It's supposed to be a government by and for the people. And if the people are not part of that process, it cannot work effectively. So we have to get the people involved. And I've done that over the last several years, working with the people and helping them be part of that process. I feel that I have the support of my communities. I am known throughout the state to be able to help people and to bring to light the things that they're concerned about. And so I will continue to do that. We have a lot of need in the Senate. We need to be more transparent, and we need to be able to keep accountability and transparency at the forefront in all that we do. And so you can go and visit and see more about me at nicholsforidaho.com. And I again am Tammy Nichols, and I'm asking for your vote May 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Napa Chamber. First off, I'd like to say that I love the United States of America. I love Idaho. I love my community, and I love my district. And I do it, I show it with actions every single day. I'm not a special interest person. They have no bearing in my life whatsoever. I support my law enforcement 100%. I always will. My name is Scott Brock. I'm running for Senate for District 10.
All right, thank you all of the candidates. This is the panel for District 10 for Senate House Seat A and House Seat B. We are going to take a very brief break and move on to District 12. So that concludes this session. Let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
ready to go.
See you later.
Lucky.
I'll just pass it to you.
I feel like I went to the prom with no date.
Okay, we're going to keep you on track. I do see just a couple familiar faces that walked in after the fact. Again, Mitch with the Nampa Chamber, thank you for being here. This is a partnership with the city. Thank you to the mayor. Thank you to Rick and Amy for all the hard work on this. And then our friends at the Idaho Press, Matt, thank you for everything you've done. Matt's going to be our moderator, and I'll just turn it over to Matt. Thank you to our candidates. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Mitch. Once again, just remind everybody that we have a zero tolerance for comments from the audience tonight, so please be respectful
Of the candidates, we have a very good slate of folks here today for District 12. So we have on our left side, we have the candidates running for Senate. And then we have in the middle, we have House Seat A and then B, and Jana Warner was unable to attend tonight. So Teddy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. We're going to start out with a 2-minute opening statement from each of you. We're tight on time, so we're holding you to it. So keep it at 2 minutes. We're going to start with Mr. Adams. We're going to move from my left to right. So Mr. Adams, then to Mr. Netzley, and so forth. If we mispronounce your names, please inform us. Thank you. Mr. Adams, we'll start with you.
All right, thank you. My name is Ben Adams. I currently am a representative from Nampa for the District 13. It got shifted out into District 12, but it's same people, same town. I was raised on the mission field in Ukraine for a large part of my childhood, and when we came back, my family moved to Emmett, where my dad pastored, and I went through my high school years. After that, I joined the Marine Corps and married my wife, Rebecca, and did 2 combat tours in Afghanistan. Came back, and as soon as I got out of the Corps, I said, I'm going back to Idaho. So I came straight back here. Me and my wife are blessed to have 2 children, an 8-year-old boy and a 18-month-old daughter. I've advocated for veterans a lot. That's kind of where my heart is. However, I ran in 2020 because I felt like things were getting a little crazy, and lo and behold, COVID hit right in the middle. And it just so happens that I ran on the concepts of individual liberty, the concepts of limited government, and it seemed like it was a prime time for what I was running on. So I banged the drum harder and harder, and the citizens of Nampa chose to elect me to go represent them and fight for their rights at the State House. And over the last 2 years, I have done that outspokenly. So something that was very important to me, I pledged not to raise your taxes, and I did not. I voted against every attempt to raise your taxes. I voted to cut your taxes, in fact. And those are big priorities, so going into the Senate, I'll continue those. Good.
Mr. Netzley.
Hey, my name is Thomas Netzley. I'm running for Nampa Senate District 12, thomasforidaho.com if you want to go on my website and see what I'm about. I am a Christian conservative man. I was born in the damn state of California, sorry. But you can't choose where you're born, right? So very early on, I knew that the principles that dictated California was not what I wanted. My wife and I have done a little bit of jumping around. We went to Wyoming and Montana and landed here, and this is home for us. We moved here in 2018. This is the promised land, guys, and so I want to keep Idaho, Idaho. So I'm up here. I'm living the dream. I have a beautiful wife over there that I can't take my eyes off of. I have 6 awesome children who are well-behaved, not from my perspective, but all of my friends say that. So I am standing up here today to stand up for conservative values. My best friends are all cops. I am pro-2A. I am pro-Blue Line, pro-Second Amendment. I am pro-medical freedom. I basically want to keep the government out of our business. I am here because I am small government-minded, and I look at the current slate of politicians that are sitting up on our Capitol Hill here in Idaho, and I think if they stood by what the Idaho GOP platform wrote down, we probably wouldn't be as impassioned here, but we see a lot of people who run on one thing and vote another way or slip behind the scenes and fade off into nothingness. So I'm proud to be here today, and I would be happy to represent you. Again, thomasforidaho.com. Thanks for your time, guys.
Hi, thanks for being here, everybody. I know this is a late night and going to get later. My name is Jeff Cornelis. I'm a Nampa native. I'm 4th generation here. I went to Nampa Public Schools and the University of Idaho. My wife and I have raised our 5 kids here, and we never missed a chance to go to school board meetings. In fact, I was on one of the charter school boards for a few years and coached a lot of their sports. I think it's imperative as a parent to be involved in your kids and involved in their education, in school and out of school. So we made sure that happened. And I want that for my grandkids and my great-grandkids. I want to keep Idaho. Everybody that I grew up with says the same thing. The people that have moved here say the same thing. I've had people that have moved here and said, you know, I'm kind of sorry I moved here because I'm changing things. So we want to keep Idaho, Idaho. Even the people coming in here, as long as we're Idaho, we're good. I own a business in town, have for 30 years, run that and paid taxes. I signed the front of the checks as well as the backs. And I think it's important that you bring that to a business entity to the state legislature. I think you have to understand business. I think you have to have some seasoning. I think it's important to be involved in your community, to know who you're representing, and to be able to go to them on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis and ask, how am I doing? What needs to be done? What do I need to do differently? What do we need to do differently? And I'm doing that. I've been involved in the community for over 30 years intimately. I'm on a couple committees in the city and service clubs. We give a lot of our time and resources, so thanks.
All right, thank you. My name is Michelle Hamilton, and I want to thank everyone for being here because you gave up an evening, but most importantly to me, it means that you care, and that's the first step to change, is that people care. So I'm grateful that there's this many people here, and we have a continual turnover, which means there's actually even more. So I thank you for doing that. So my name is Michelle Hamilton. I grew up in Canyon County. I raised my kids here, and now my grandkids are being raised here. I have been married 35 years. My husband is here in the crowd, of course. He likes to stay in the background. Most people don't even know that I'm married because he likes to stay in the background that much. But he's always there. He's my biggest supporter, and I appreciate him for that. We have been self-employed almost my entire adult life, which, as everyone knows, when you are an entrepreneur and a business owner, you wear every hat there is. And so I have literally had experience in just about anything and everything, from taxes to, sweeping. So it's one of those things. I've been a contractor for many, many years, and some of you I might have actually worked on your house before, that's for sure. I know I did his. So our kids have had wonderful lives here in Canyon County, and I want to keep Canyon County the way it was for me, a great life, and for them. I became a precinct committeeman many years ago when I wanted to get involved when the kids were gone. And then actually I became the county chairman, and now I work as the state vice chairman and the director of communications for the lieutenant governor. Thank you.
I will also say I'm very grateful for everybody that's come out tonight. As Michelle said, this process is important because you all are engaged. If we don't have engaged voters, we don't have engaged politicians. And then we see issues and effects that we've seen the last 2 years through COVID happen time and time again. My name is Sebastian Griffin. There's a couple people wearing some shirts just in case you need to see the spelling. And I love Nampa. I love Nampa more than anything. I love Nampa, I love Canyon County, and I love Idaho. My wife, Macy, and I grew up, we were raised here. My family's here, her family's here. We're here, and we're here to stay. I'm excited to raise my kids here, and I hope when the time comes, I'll have grandkids here, and that they'll be able to have similar experiences that my wife and I have been very grateful to have living in such an amazing community as this. I never thought that I'd be getting involved in politics. I always thought I was interested behind the scenes. I enjoy helping good people do good things. And then within the last few years, I saw that there was a need for a new perspective, a fresh face, young thoughts, young perspective in the legislature. And I'm the first one to embrace my age. When I knock on doors, like I did today, and people open up and they see my tag and they say, "You're Sebastian Griffin? You've got signs everywhere. I can't drive 10 feet without seeing one of them. I can't even believe this." And I did that, and I'm doing that because I care about Nampa. I care about each one of you individually because you're my neighbors. And when we love our neighbors, we see greater things happen within our states. We need to be reducing taxes in our states. We need to be improving education because we have a workforce shortage. We need to be prepping our kids, and there's a lot that I can go on later on. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening. I'm Jaron Crane, your District 12 Seat B candidate, and I'm sorry Jana Warner couldn't make it. That would have been nice to meet Jana. I'm a third-generation Idahoan, third-generation veteran, third-generation business owner now. So I went to Nampa Christian schools from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. I then went off to Bible college in Florida. From there, I got a basketball scholarship and went up and played basketball at Ohio Christian University. I finished my associate's degree, came back around 2011 to Nampa. So 2011, I married my wife Clarissa and joined the Idaho Army National Guard, and I started Boise State University to get my bachelor's degree in political science. So 2014, I graduated with my bachelor's degree from Boise State. In 2019, I finished my contract with the Guard. And in 2020, my brother and I bought a business here in town, American Fire Protection. Since 2014, I've been running my parents' company with my brother every single day. So business owner, business manager has been my thing. So that's what I've alluding to Michelle's thing of you wear every hat, you honestly do. So fast forward to 2020, there was an open seat. Ben was talking about that earlier. I elected not to run at that time. Brent and I were buying our business together. I'm like, hey, you're already in office and someone's got to mind the store here, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of running the business. You go ahead and keep serving people. So there was opportunities for city council. I prayed about those. Those didn't feel right at the time. And then COVID hit. And as a business owner, you looking at your people saying that you're essential and you do matter is something that I never would have thought I had to tell an employee. So it became apparent to me that this is the time to run. This is the time to get involved. We need people that are going to stand forward. And in the face of adversity, they're not going to run. They're not going to have flight or fright. They're going to actually stand and fight. So that's why I'm in this, is to serve you all and represent you all as District 12 Seat B's candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Okay, we're going to move on to our question rounds. And with the first question, we're going to start on the right side and move from right to left. And we will continue to shake up that order so that there's no advantage for who gets to answer first. And we're also going to change the order of the questions that we asked for the last panel. So question number 1 is going to go to you, Mr. Crane. And you have 1 minute to respond. Please keep an eye on Jill for your time. And the question is, according to 97,000 Idahoans, our state has not properly funded education, forcing the public to push for an initiative on the ballot in November. Do you agree or disagree with this effort to increase education funding in Idaho? You have 1 minute response, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The research that I have looked into has shown that education is actually the largest part of our budget. So we are giving schools, great amounts of money. The question I would have is, what are they doing with what they're given? We need to take a look at how they're spending those dollars. I'm super proud of the fact that the legislature raised teacher salaries. Fantastic. More isn't always the answer. Pouring on more dollars onto something that is already getting a ton of money isn't the first thing I would go to. I would go to, what are we doing with what we're given? So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. Griffin.
Thank you. I believe initiatives are essential. We have to have the process. With this initiative, I go back and forth. we look at it, and I probably would not be a supporter of the initiative currently, not because I don't support education. I say this because if we approve the initiative that's happening and proposed right now, we will be the second most expensive state for income tax. We're going to see that increase, and we're going to see it not only here, but on the national level, it will be recognized as that. Initiatives are essential. I think we need to be supporting our teachers as well as our students, and we can, even though people don't believe it, that we've seen in the last 2 years, we can do that at the same time. We can support our teachers, we can support our administrators, as well as supporting our students. When I was 18 years old, actually, I got a bill passed at the state legislature to provide opportunities for students because I care so much about this topic. Education is easily the most important thing happening in Idaho right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, 1 minute, please.
So one of the things that I believe is that we are taught for years and years, we've been told we're not funding education. We're not funding education. And I don't know who makes that decision. I feel like it's a narrative that is being put out there that we're not funding education when it's the most money we spend by our state budget on everything. And this year we increased it a whole bunch as well, a ton. Just the amount of salaries that have been raised, salaries have been raised in the last few years. So I feel like we should not bow down to the dogma that we're not giving education enough money. I don't believe in throwing money at a problem. I feel like the problem with education goes beyond the funding. I do believe in the initiative process. They've done the work. They deserve to have it on the ballot. But I do not believe, I would not support the initiative, no.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Mr. Cornelius.
Not a simple answer, like they've all said. The initiative, I mean, that's been a big lift for them to get where they're at, and I'm glad they are there. And it does need to be looked at. You know, being the lowest state as far as funding our education is not acceptable. We should take a look at that. I don't know what the answer is. Our outcomes are much better than 50th. Our outcomes are really good for what we're doing. The teachers did get a bump this year, so let's see what that looks like moving forward before I say absolutely yes. But it's a complicated deal, and we're going to have to wait and see what they do with this increase before we know how to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Netzley.
No. The simple answer is no. We don't want to spend more money on the public education system. That's failing our children and failing our communities. My wife and I homeschool our children, mostly my wife. I support different forms of education, whether it's charter school or homeschool. We keep dumping money into the public school systems, and it's not being successful. I think it would be successful it would be a good idea to go through an audit where they are spending money. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is that we keep complaining about the school system, but liberty-minded people, conservative people aren't going to work there as often as they should. And I think that's where we're failing, because the influence we have on our kids is by working for them. And when we just give that over to whoever's the lowest man on the totem pole or whoever's willing to take it up, that's where we fail. So I would encourage educators and conservative-minded people to step up in the education system to lead our children.
Thank you. I've been asked to remind folks that we are being recorded, so please make sure you speak into the microphone so that it gets picked up by the recording. Mr. Adams.
Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about the initiatives. I also agree that the initiatives are very important. My first year in the legislature, I voted against some legislation that would have made the initiative process more restrictive, because that's your right, and it's enshrined in the Idaho State Constitution. This year in the legislature, we took money and raised teachers' salaries, like Jaron said, but what we also did is we specifically allocated it to go to their salaries, because what we found out was some school districts were taking those that money that was supposed to be used for teacher salaries and were funneling into extracurricular activities like sports programs and things like that. When we give them money, that's it needs to go where it's supposed to go. The simple answer is for me, no, I'm not going to be supporting it because it is a tax increase. It's a tax increase.
Thank you. Okay, next question, Teddy.
I'm going to start with Mr. Cornelis on this one, move to Ms. Hamilton, then Mr. Griffin, Mr. Crane, back over to Mr. Adams and Mr. Netzley. Question number 2, should local option tax be made available to all municipalities, and should local city governments be trusted with it? Do local government know best?
Yeah, it's been said that local government is the purest form of government. So, and I know Nampa. I know how they manage money, which is really well. I would trust them with that, but I don't know if that's the simple answer for every community. I know my community really well, and I know how they manage their money, and I know what they do with it and why. So I can't give you a complete answer on that, but I know my city, and yeah, thank you.
Ms. Hamilton.
So the simple answer is a tax is a tax is a tax. And all you're going to do is hurt the small businesses within your community. You're going to drive business out of your community, and it won't solve any of the problems. I would never, ever vote for a tax increase on Idaho, period.
Mr. Griffin.
Thank you. And like Mr. Cornelis said, right in Nampa, we're blessed. We're blessed with a great city council right now. They're fiscally conservative. And I trust them to govern how they're governing. I believe another tax increase is just another burden that we're putting on Nampa citizens. And I wouldn't support the optional tax, because when we are supporting additional taxes, we're burdening Nampa taxpayers and Idaho taxpayers time and time again. There's other options that we could look into, like impact fees, to be able to help support this. But taxing out Nampa citizens or Idaho citizens is not the option. And because it directly is added to sales tax, we'll see changing in spending habits. If one city like Nampa imposes an optional tax, we're going to see spending go to Caldwell or to Ontario, where there is no sales tax. And we want to keep Nampa earned Nampa dollars in Nampa and in Idaho.
Yeah, I echo what Sebastian just said. I love the mayor. I love the city council here. They do a fantastic job running the city. But taxes are taxes, and I'm a cut taxes kind of guy. So no, it's simple for me. That would be a no.
Mr. Adams?
Yeah, 2 years ago when I ran for the legislature, I was the only candidate to come out outright and say, no, I do not support local option sales tax, because ultimately it's a tax increase, and I'm not going to support that.
Mr. Netzley.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking taxes. Just feels like you're beating a dead horse here. I mean, we're all a bunch of conservatives. We all claim to be low tax and pro-freedom. That's what I'll be. No, simply no taxes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to our third question. And where are we, Teddy? Why don't we go backwards here? We'll start with you, Mr. Netzley, and go that way, ending with Mr. Cornelius. So the question is, we've been talking a lot about taxes, and nobody wants to see them raised, but they do pay for things that solve problems in our communities. So with that, the question is, what is your solution or solutions to high property taxes facing homeowners in Idaho? Mr. Netzley.
Yeah, I mean, so simply put, I believe in an income tax. No, not an income tax. I believe in a sales tax, I apologize. No income tax, no property taxes. I think you should be taxed on the money that you spend. And I mean, if you go to buy a house and every year you have to worry about paying your property taxes on it, I would say abolish it. Practically, I would work with the other members in the Senate to do that, but I think we should be sales tax only.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, so the property tax issue, I also sit on the House Rev and Tax Committee and have dealt with this issue a lot. I supported Representative Scogg's legislation 2 years ago and worked diligently with other members of the legislature to try and fix the problems of the bill that was passed. There was a proposed bill this year that never got out of committee that would eliminate primary residence property tax in lieu of a 2% increase in your sales tax. And I said, I like half of that. So I figured out how much it would cost. It would cost about $717 million to eliminate primary residence property tax. That's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on how we can take government growth, what would be government growth, and turn it into tax cuts. I think that's very important that we use the growth of the state, that we use where we're at as a state to push that money back to you through tax cuts.
Thank you, Senator Adams. We're going to move to Mr. Crane.
Yeah, so I only have a minute to answer, so I'll make it as quick as I can. I was door knocking a few weeks ago, and I was approached by a guy, and he said, hey, I would like to talk to you really quick. I'm from California, and I'm like, oh, great. You know, where's this going to go? And he said, no, if we got one thing right, it was Prop 13. And I said, really, what's that? So he told me a little bit about it, and I looked into it a little bit. I don't believe that I have the silver bullet for solving our property tax problems, but I will tell you what, that is a very interesting idea to me. And in short summation, the property has an assessed value, and year over year, you can only increase it 1%. So once the property changes hands, it's reassessed on its value. That's a very interesting idea to me. I've had a lot of people in the community that I've talked to about that idea and said, hey, that should be discussed over there in Boise. I would love to have the conversation, and there's a lot of people smarter than myself over there, but I would like to have a conversation about that idea and see if it is something that would work for Idaho.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. Griffin.
I'm grateful for this question because, like Jared and I've been out knocking, and it's easily the #1 issue that people bring up. I've had the privilege to get to know and visit with monthly our assessor, and our assessor is the one who assesses our home values and taxable property values. We need to reestablish indexing. Right now, the homeowner's exemption is $125,000. With inflation, within the last year, I don't know, this surprised me, but I visited with him and he said this year alone, we're seeing 45 to 50% increase on home or property values. If we had indexing currently available, it would then bring it up to $175,000 to $200,000 of a property tax exemption rather than the $125,000 currently. We need to reestablish indexing because it helps attack this issue head on.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
We absolutely need to return to the homeowners exemption indexing. I believe that's one of the main things that we can do to help, but we also need to figure out a program to help our seniors. Something where people are not priced out of their home that they've lived in all their life. We need to look out for those people. That's very, very important. I don't believe property taxes is a one solution problem. I believe it's a multi-pronged problem, and we need to face it from several different positions. But most of all, we need to start with the indexing. That needs to be returned right away. But of course, all property taxes are budget-based. So that is one of the things we have to return. We have to look at budgets. We have to look at all those kind of things. It's not a one-step issue.
Thank you, Mr. Cornelius.
Yeah, I think indexing is the answer, getting back to that we had 6 years ago. Property taxes, again, is the #1 thing people comment when you're knocking on their door. If you ask them, 9 out of 10 times it'll be property taxes. And so we have to do something immediately. So if getting back to indexing is a big issue, a big lift right away, we can just raise it again. We can just raise it from the 125 that it was increased to last year to something higher, just to help something immediately, because people are saying we need relief now. I talked to a 71-year-old woman the other day who said, my home is paid for. She lives in a really nice subdivision, nice place. She said, if we go through this again, I won't be able to stay here. And I've been hearing that over and over again. So we need to do something. Indexing, I think, is it.
Okay, we're going to move on to our lightning round. This is the 2 questions I'm going to ask are one-word answers. Okay, one-word answers. So let's do it. I'm going to start out with Mr. Griffin. I'm going to move then to Ms. Hamilton, Mr. Cornelius, these 2 gentlemen, and Mr. Crane. Question number 1 in the lightning round. Who won the 2020 presidential election, Trump or Biden?
Donald Trump.
Trump.
Donald Trump.
Cheating.
Oh.
You said one word.
Donald Trump.
Trump.
Okay. Question number 2 in the lightning round. I'm going to start with Mr. Crane, and then I'm going to swing it back around to Mr. Adams and this way. Do you support and believe in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation?
Sometimes.
I'm going to say sometimes as well.
Yes.
I'm going to say no. Mostly because of.
One word.
Oh, okay. No.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to add a few because we're a little ahead of schedule. So we're going to bring up the ones we talked about before. So let's see. We'll start. Adams. We're going to go with Mr. Adams and just move straight across. The question is, would you support a constitutional amendment to add impact fees as an option to build schools in Idaho?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah. Would you support a constitutional amendment, because that's what Mr. Moyle pointed out in the last round, to add impact fees for schools as an option for new construction of schools in Idaho?
Well, you know, as long as it can actually fund it. You have to crunch the numbers and actually make sure it's going to do it before you do something as big as change the Constitution. I think it's an interesting concept. We definitely need to make sure that we're funding those schools, but changing the Constitution is a big step, no matter what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Netzley?
Okay.
Oh, did I? No, that's right. No, you're good. No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, you're next.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, can you repeat the question for
Sure,
me?
absolutely. Again, would you support a constitutional amendment to add impact fees to build new schools in Idaho?
No, again, I see fees as just a different way of saying a tax. I don't support raising taxes on people or fees on people. Again, I think we're looking to spend money on a education system that has failed our children and our state.
Thank you. Quick answer in the lightning round.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Mr. Cornelius, same question to you.
Can you state the question again?
I think I've reworded it myself a few times. All right. Would you support a constitutional amendment to add building new schools as impact fees in Idaho?
I can't give you a firm answer because from what I see, it'll only represent about 30% of the need. So going through a constitutional amendment is a big lift for 30%. So I think if the numbers can be reworked and if the constitutional lift is worth doing that, then yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Absolutely.
Mr.
Yeah,
Crane?
I believe that growth should pay for growth.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you very much. Last lightning round question. We're just going to go backwards now, starting with you, Mr. Crane. Sure. The question is critical race theory being taught in Idaho schools?
You know, it's an interesting question. I started out this campaign with not having much understanding of if it was or wasn't. So I started to sit down with different people that are more versed in education than I am. And they showed me some stuff that I was shocked to see. So I do believe that hate, lack of love for this country is being taught 100%. As far as the critical race theory, what I have also learned is that they're not using those terms anymore. They're changing some terminology. So I don't believe it's taught in every school district, but I do believe that there's things being taught to our kids today that definitely shouldn't be in schools and wasn't being taught even 10 and 15 years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right, Mr. Griffin.
Sometimes I believe that, like he said, how do we define what critical race theory actually is? Can we put a fingerprint on it and say it's this? I think there's a lot of things that we're seeing within our schools that aren't American, aren't constitutionally taught, and we're taking away the focus from American history and what's true to what's not. And so that's why I would say sometimes and not in every school.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, I believe it is. And whether you want to call it critical race theory, social justice, social emotional learning, all those things, I believe that it is being taught to our kids and it's inappropriate and we should do something about it.
Thank you. Mr. Cornelius.
I have not seen any evidence of it, but in the grade school and high school, but I am sure that it's being taught in some courses in college. And I'm not for that in any way. I think, like the others, that our history needs to be kept as our history and not erased because of some ideology.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our 1-minute closing statements. I think didn't I get them already? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
No,
keep
still
going.
waiting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so critical race theory is definitely being taught in our schools, but it's not being called that outright. They're pretty sneaky in how they fit it in there. I was at a local store recently and saw anti-bullying, anti-suicide signs, so I went up and talked to them. The organization was Law Enforcement Against Discrimination. I talked to him, and he was telling me how they're for social, emotional development and critical thinking skills. And this is law enforcement against discrimination. I don't think that would represent most of what you believe as far, again, I'm pro-law enforcement, but they are finding sneaky ways of putting this stuff into our schools and into our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Thank you. Look, I'm a homeschool graduate of Idaho. I spent most of my education as a homeschooler, and I got to get a very different curriculum. Then I went to Boise State University, and I got a very different curriculum. I had never experienced so much un-American ideology, and I lived in the former Soviet Union for a lot of my childhood, and I'd never seen it like this in my life. So I'm going to stay away from the definition. I'm just going to say that divisive curriculum that pits groups against other groups and un-American curriculum should not be in our education. Doesn't matter if it's from higher ed all the way down to pre-K. I don't care.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to our closing statements. Why don't we start with Mr. Griffin, and we will move from you to Mr. Crane, and then all the way back around, ending with you, Ms. Hamilton. So you have 1 minute to wrap up and give your reason to vote for you. So go ahead.
Just like in the beginning, I love Nampa. I love Nampa. I love Idaho more than anything. I think here our values are faith, family, and freedom. And I gave myself chills. How's that? Because I love the community we live in. I'm a 5th generation Idahoan. I hope to see 10 more generations after me here. I'm doing the work. I've knocked the doors. I've made the calls. I'm so proud of the overwhelming support we've had for this campaign. If you look around in the room a little bit, you'll see some here and there. And this is what I felt throughout the community. And I'm just so grateful. We need people that are willing to stand up for Idaho values, conservative values, people that are willing to be a leader, to unite our community, because that's what we need more than anything is unity. We need more statesmen in the legislature, and I hope to be one, and I hope you'll vote Griffin for Idaho on May 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Thank you so much for everyone waiting and being here and listening to the candidates tonight. Thank you for the forum. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here in this capacity. And thank you to the online group. I understand there's a lot of people listening online. I love Nampa, and I'm proud to be from Nampa and proud to represent each of you. And you know, to go back to a question earlier about a certain organization, I hope that the constituents of District 12 hold us accountable, as opposed to an organization and a scorecard. I would hope that you would hold me accountable and that you would hold everyone that you elect accountable, because we're there to represent you. It's not about us, it's about represent District 12. So thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you. Senator Adams.
Yeah, well, I'm a proven conservative. 2 years in the House, I have done exactly what I said I was going to do. I've been endorsed by the NRA, by Idaho Chooses Life, by the concerned citizens of Canyon County, people who really are in this community, who've dug in. In my short 2 years, I pushed hard to help eliminate the emissions testing. That is going away next year. I was able to get a piece of legislation onto the governor's desk that stopped mandatory vaccinations as a term of employment. Unfortunately, that was vetoed and couldn't get overridden. But I'm about getting things done. It's easy to have a lot of rhetoric. I'm not about that. I'm about getting things done. And I said I was not loyal to any lobby group. I'm loyal to you. That is still my position. That will always be my position.
Thank you. Closing statement, Mr. Netzley.
Hi again, Thomas Netzley, thomasforidaho.com. Why should you elect me? I hold to all the same values as my opponent. I don't like besmirching people. I don't think he's held up quite as strong as he says he has, and that's what I want to say about that. I am a blue-collar worker. Sebastian said we need more statesmen up there. I disagree. I think we need more blue-collar people up there. I think we need more people who represent and are in the community, and that's what I am. I'm a master diesel mechanic. I commute to Boise every week. I work for my family. We're a single-income family. I am proud of the life that we live. The good things you see in me today are a reflection of the Holy Spirit's work in my life because of Jesus Christ. The bad things you see in the awkwardness is just because I'm a fallible man and I can be awkward sometimes, but I'm super grateful for the opportunity to run to represent you guys, and thomasforidaho.com. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Cornelius.
Yeah, thank you again for being here tonight and being online. It's a real pleasure of mine to be able to run for this seat. I've lived here all my life, been deeply involved in the community. I do love Nampa. My whole family loves Nampa. We're engaged daily in the city of Nampa and its residents. I think when I go to Boise as your representative, I will take you with me in spirit because I know who you are. I grew up with you. My kids grew up with you. Your clients, your friends, your neighbors. I will take that to the State House and make darn sure that you're represented. I will keep our taxes down. I will do the right thing as a Christian businessman so that I can come back to this community and continue to run my business for the other 7, 8, 9 months of the year. So vote for me coming up on the 17th, Cornelis for Idaho.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton?
Right. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. You know, I have been in service to this community, to Canyon County, for most of my life. And the last few years, I have spent at the Capitol working with the legislature. I've been a Senate attaché for many years. And I know the players, I know the processes, I know all of it. And there will be no learning curve for me. I will be able to step in and do the job immediately. And I feel that my whole life has been in training to do this because I have the connections, I know the people, I know the community, and I am able to put in the hard work because of that. So I would encourage all of you to go to my website, hamiltonforidaho.com, read a little bit more about me, and I would appreciate your vote on May 17th. Thank you all very much for being here.
Let's give all of the candidates from District 12 a round of applause. That concludes District 12, our third panel. We'll move on to our fourth panel after a short break. So thank you all for being here.
Started. Last but not least. Okay, out of respect for the next slate, if everybody will take their seats, please, I would appreciate it. Hopefully you guys heard my comment about last but not least. Thanks for being here. If you just got here, again, thank you for being here. Mitch with the Nampa Chamber. Thank you to my friends from the Idaho Press and my friends from the city of Nampa, Amy, Mayor's running around here somewhere, and Rick. The goal on this was to get people educated, so thank you for being here. And I'm going to pause and be quiet and turn it over to my friend, Matt and Teddy from the Idaho Press. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Mitch. We are doing a great job tonight on schedule, and I appreciate everybody from hanging in there with us. It's wonderful to have such a great audience, and we welcome those online as well. Just so everybody knows, this is being recorded, so it's important that we speak clearly and into the mic so that we can capture that for anyone who wants to watch this after the fact. We're going to start with our 2-minute opening statement, and let's just go from right to left this first time and start with you, Mr. Roten. So you have 2 minutes to tell us why to vote for you.
Of course. Hello, I'm Kenny Roten, and I was born in Nampa, Idaho native, which makes me almost a 57-year Idaho native, if anybody's doing the math. Went to NNC, got my associates there, as well as Boise State, got my bachelor's at Boise State. My beautiful wife, Diane, is here. We have 2 kids, 4 grandkids now, so that's a lot of fun. And living in Nampa, being from Nampa, I started out working as a teenager topping corn. If any of you are from here, you know what I mean about topping corn. That's the only job kids could get back then. But after I graduated from college in '88, I've worked professionally here in Nampa and in this area and in Idaho all of my life. I've been involved in the community for a long time, from building the Optimus fields to being president of the Nampa JCs, the Nampa Optimus, president of the Kiwanis. I've also been on the boards of the Nampa Association of Realtors, as well as the Building Contractors Association and the Chamber of Commerce. I've also, currently, I chair the Venue Management Commission advisory for the city of Nampa. And I've done a lot. I'm still involved on a almost daily basis as far as the things that I'm doing in the community, whether it's involved with the chamber or through work. I'm still working every day as well. We all know the issues, and it should almost not have to be said, but I will say it. I'm pro-gun, pro-life. I support education in Idaho, of course. I support the Blue, as well as all of our first responders, EMS, and all of them, as well as I hope to lower taxes and keep money in the citizens' pockets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roten. Mr. Hunt?
Roger Hunt. I have lived here in Nampa for 25 years. I've been married to my first wife for 50 years this coming August, and will remain married to her. I am a conservative Republican who believes in the Constitution. I believe in the Declaration of Independence and the rights that God gave us, and that He inspired wise men to establish a Constitution to protect the rights that God gave us when we were born. I retired about 12 years ago from Graybar Electric, which is a Fortune 500 company, after 30 years. And since then, I've been doing property inspections for mortgage companies. I have been active in my church for 50 years, serving as a bishop for 5.5 years to a ward of almost 400 people. I have a BA in political science from Brigham Young University. I'm not an incumbent, therefore I'm qualified to run. I love Idaho. It's got some values that I want to preserve for my children and grandchildren. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Those are our candidates for District 13, House Seat B. Tara Barling was unable to attend tonight. House Seat A is unopposed. We're not holding a forum for that this evening. That will be part of the general election. So let's move on to the Senate candidates and start with Mr. Lenny. 2-minute opening statement, please.
Is there a clock somewhere that I can
Jill right here
Oh,
will be
perfect.
holding you up, a 10-second warning and a hard stop.
I'm keeping my eye on Jill. So my name is Brian Linney. I'm running for State Senate in District 13, which is why I'm sitting here. I have been married to that woman over there for 18 years. We have 4 children. Wasn't born in Idaho, but I've lived in Idaho longer than where I was born, in the state we shall not speak of. Yeah, I've been in Idaho for 12 years now. Bachelor's degree in political science. I went down and got my master's degree from Biola University in theology. And for about the past 8-9 years, I've been working as a marketing consultant. So work from home, have different clients, help them build their businesses. So that's a little bit about me, kind of the basic stuff. I'm running because since, generally speaking, I know we'll get into some other stuff, but since 2020, we've seen the absolute destruction of the moral confidence that we, the people, have in our elected leaders. I've watched things happen in a Republican state that I thought could never happen, and I realized, Idaho's great and I love it, but it's not really the conservative utopia I thought it was. So it's just time for new leadership. It's time to clean house. When we have Republicans acting and voting like Democrats, I think there's a problem. So that's why I threw my name in the hat, and that's me.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Mr. Egenbrod.
Thank you, Matt, and good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Egenbrod. I'm the incumbent, sorry about that, senator from District 13. Thank you to the Chamber, to the Nampa City, and to Idaho Press for putting this on this evening. I've been blessed and honored to serve Nampa as your District 13 senator for the last 6 years. I'm a 5th-generation Nampa native and product of Nampa. My wife, Patricia, and I have been married for 36 years and raised both of our kids here in Nampa. Rather than bore you with a lot about me, let me talk about what we've done in the legislature in the last 6 years that I've been there. While serving in the legislature, I'm pleased to have gained the confidence of the Senate to become chairman of the Finance Committee. While I've been in the office, we've accomplished many things important to Nampa and to Idaho. We've provided record income tax cuts, not just once, but twice. We're now the least regulated state in the nation after cutting our regulations by 1/3. We're now the most fiscal policy transparent state in the nation after installing Transparent Idaho. We increased our rainy day savings accounts to over $1 billion while paying off our debt. We're #1 in the nation for economic growth and improved our bond rating to AAA, the highest rating in the nation. But we're not done. We still have work to do, including addressing our property tax problem. We're also making significant investments in Idaho's future through tax relief, infrastructure investments, including roads, bridges, and broadband, as well as our education system. It is now time to hold those responsible for executing the plan accountable to delivering the desired results. While in office, I've also been a strong supporter of the first responders and Back the Blue. In recognition of my support, I'm honored to be the Idaho Chiefs of Police 2022 Legislator of the Year. I'm Jeff Egenbrod, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to our first question. Teddy?
Question number 1, I'm going to start with Mr. Egenbrod, move on to Mr. Lenny, followed by Mr. Hunt and Mr. Roten. Senator Egenbrod, what's your solution or solutions to high property taxes facing homeowners in our state?
Thank you. That's a question on everyone's mind, including mine, and has been for more than 1 year, been multiple years, ever since we've been experiencing the rapid growth that we have. I think it starts with a bill that I co-sponsored that was actually developed by the concerned citizens along with the county and the city here in Nampa, and that was one that was referenced earlier that Representative Skog introduced in the House. Again, I was a co-sponsor of that bill. Unfortunately, it was not heard, but I think that's a good foundation to start. What we really have to look at is the problem is a tax shift, and what we really have to look at is a solution for all economies. Today, the tax shift is onto the residential because the commercial properties are not increasing in value at the rate the residential are. But I can remember back in 2007 when we all, residential, got a tax cut and the burden fell on the commercial. So we need to look for a solution that survives all economies. But I think that House bill is a good place to start.
Mr. Lenny.
Do I have 1 minute?
Yes, sir.
All right, I better hurry up. With the property taxes, I think the easiest solution is bumping up the exemption from, what is it now, 125, I think. I think we could bump that way up. I think it's tough to answer in 1 minute. There's a lot we could be doing for senior citizens. I think if you own your home, you shouldn't have to be paying for it for the rest of your life. I mean, in a perfect world, I think property taxes are immoral and we should get rid of them. I don't know if that's realistic, though, because I haven't really seen it happen. But I think the quick solution is bumping up the exemption, the homeowner's exemption, and doing something for seniors. Maybe that's by age or whatever that is. But there's a lot to be done there that hasn't been done yet. So,
Mr. Hunt.
I've lived in my house the house I'm in now for about 15, maybe going on 20 years. My taxes have tripled, and I can understand why people on a fixed income are concerned. The best solution and the most American solution is to eliminate the property tax. I believe it's un-American that you have to pay rent to the government to live in your house that you supposedly own. That's probably not realistic, but I would approve of something in that direction. Some Band-Aids, maybe when you turn 65, you don't pay property tax anymore. Definitely the index needs to be put back into effect, and it's basically a spending problem, not a taxing problem. If spending is not controlled, taxes will keep going up.
And Mr. Roden.
Yep, yeah, property taxes, that's the big one. And of course, you know, the immediate relief would be increasing the exemption, as well as revisiting the circuit breaker. You know, you've got the circuit breaker for seniors with disabilities, the veterans, blind people. I mean, these are the ones we're trying to protect anyway. And, you know, that can be revisited as well. The indexing, you know, was stopped in 2016. They gave us the $100,000 cap on the exemption, and that's when the shift started happening, you know, with the commercial and ag paying less, and that shift over to the homeowner. So, you know, raising that. But we need to be careful and look at that, and that indexing may need to be some sort of a hybrid because, as Senator Egenbrod alluded to, boy, values are going up. But sometimes they go down. And if that exemption goes down with it, budgets drive it. So where are you at that point? We need to really look at how we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Roten. We're going to move on to our next question. I'm going to start with Mr. Hunt, Mr. Roten, Mr. Lenny, and Mr. Egenbrod. So with that, the question is, should local option tax be made available to all municipalities? And should local city governments be trusted with it? Do local governments know best?
I think local government is the best government, but I do not agree with a local option tax. I think you're going to get too many confusing messages out there. People in one city will go to another city to buy. It's going to drive out business in certain areas. So I'm opposed to local option taxes.
Mr. Roten.
And this one's not just that simple either. Nobody wants more taxes. I don't want more taxes. I don't support more taxes. However, everybody that's set up here has said local business or local government is the best government. And I know, again, I have the privilege of being from Nampa, so you know, we have great management here. And there's things that need to be understood with regard to a local option tax. I believe a debt constitutionally takes 2/3 vote. You know, and those are by the citizens. So if the mayor and the cities come to the state and say, we want this in our cities, and it's going to be transparent if done correctly, we're going to have a plan, and the people are going to vote for it, Are you going to tell me you're not trusting your local government and you're not trusting your local taxpayers to vote on something that they say that they may want? So it's not that simple.
Thank you, Mr. Roten. Mr. Lenny.
What, could you restate the question?
Sure. Should local option tax be made available to all municipalities, and should local city governments be trusted with it? Do local governments know best?
Okay, I thought there was a second part I missed. No, I mean, I'm not for any new taxes. Do local governments know best? That's, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But no, I'm a conservative Republican. I believe in the state GOP platform, so no, I'm not for any new taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Egenbrod.
Thank you, Matt. Local option taxes are simply a tax shift. In Idaho, we have a pretty well-balanced three-legged stool with property tax, income tax, and sales tax. So I think we have to be really thoughtful, and it's going to depend upon each community. Today, we do have local option taxes in Idaho in some of our resort communities, and it can work. But that doesn't mean it can work in every community. What I would like to see is the people that have an interest in the local option tax, the local municipalities, put together the plan, but not a plan that increases tax, but shifts the tax. So in the places that it does work, we have the local option tax that actually helps reduce the burden on property tax. And if that's the case, that could be a solution. But I think the solution has to come from the local government and the people that be using it. At the state level, we need to have the sideboards to make sure that it is not a tax increase.
Thank you, Senator. Next question.
Question number 3, I'm going to start with Mr. Lenny, move on to Mr. Angenbrod, and then on to Mr. Roten and Mr. Hunt. According to 97,000 Idahoans, our state has not properly funded education, forcing the public to push for an initiative on the ballot in November. Do you agree or disagree with this effort to increase education funding in our state? Mr. Lenny.
No, I don't. I don't think money can buy better schools. I don't think money can buy a better state. I don't think throwing money at a problem incessantly is going to fix that problem. There are systemic, inherent issues with our public schools and our public school system, and just throwing money at them is not going to fix it. So no, I don't support it at all. I think we should actually maybe pull some of that funding back because there's a lot going on in the classrooms with indoctrination of kids and students, and to throw more money at that is weird. I think it's odd that some superintendents are making more than our governor. That's kind of interesting. We're just feeding this beast of a system where we should be funding students and parents and families.
Mr. Angenbrod.
Thank you. There has been rankings that we are last in the nation as far as funding our public schools. But if you look at our performance, we actually perform about middle of the pack. So we are getting a bang for our buck. You look at the numbers, you go back to when we really froze the education funding in the recession, and we are now just getting in real dollars to the same place. You can't simply look at the increase in dollars of education. Last year we had 7,000 new students in Idaho. Well, you have to educate them. You can't turn them away. So it becomes complicated. I do not like the initiative that's out there. I do not like the way that it increases the taxes, but I think we have to have a plan. We have to have a plan to get bang for our buck before we start throwing money at the problem and expecting that to be the solution.
Thank you. Mr. Roten, you're up.
Yeah, and once again, they certainly have the right to pursue an initiative, and I think they've done a good job as far as getting 97,000 votes to do so. But when you read through it, it's funded by taxes. It increases taxes, and there's no trick to that. I think our governor and our legislatures in the session, they really showed that Idaho is supporting our public education. I think it was a 12.5% raise, year over year, and the money that they were sending, especially to K-12, K through 12. I don't think we need the initiative as far as that goes. I wouldn't support it.
Mr. Hunt.
I do not support that initiative. It's a tax increase. And I think we need tax reform, not tax increases. We have a problem in our public schools. A few years ago, when I was on the Napa School Board, which I forgot to mention, 50 years ago or whatever, at that time, about 30% of the classroom time was spent on things besides education, besides reading, writing, and arithmetic. I've been told it's even higher now that non-educational stuff is being covered in the classroom. Our kids are being indoctrinated with left-wing propaganda, Marxist doctrine, critical race theory. I'm not going to give schools any more money until they clean up their act.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our lightning round because we've done such a great job staying on task tonight and being on time. So these are quick questions with one-word answers. Let's start with Mr. Hunt and then go to Mr. Roten and then Mr. Lenny and Mr. Eggenbrod. So first question, again, we're looking for a one-word response here. Who won the 2020 presidential election, Trump or Biden?
China.
China.
Trump.
Mr. Roten.
Trump.
Mr. Lenny.
Donald.
Mr. Eggenbrod.
Trump.
Thank you. Next question. We're going to go exactly reverse order now. So Mr. Eggenbrod, Mr. Lenny, Mr. Roten, Mr. Hunt. Do you support and believe in the mission of the Idaho Freedom Foundation? Mr. Eggenbrod.
No.
My turn?
Mr. Lenny.
Absolutely.
Mr. Roten.
Did.
Yes. Thank you. Let me take these. Okay. All right. We've got two more. I'm going to try and reword the first one because it's been, I've had to explain it too often. So what we're going to say is, would you support a change to allow schools to charge impact fees for new development? Let's start with Mr. Roten and move just straight right to left.
And how long do we have?
Very brief. Let's just say that.
No, you know, and this has been brought up, but, you know, those impact fees have to be paid by somebody. And again, we see that the funding would not cover the school. Impact fees really don't work like that if it's a real impact fee, because it goes to different projects. And you're going to charge these homeowners, and they're not all new homeowners. Sometimes somebody from out of state moves into an existing home, and somebody that lives here buys a new home. And they're going to pay those permits and pay those fees. But you keep putting these fees on top of these, and you know they get passed through to the home buyers. Have you seen what has happened lately to the affordability of homes? Well, impact fees are included in there.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt.
I understand it would take probably a constitutional amendment to make this happen, but I do believe that growth should fund growth. The people that lived in a house for 20 years, kids have graduated, they're long gone. I don't think it's right that they have to pay for a new school when there's new people coming in and they should be.
Thank you. Mr. Lenny.
Short answers. Well, the short answer is no, and the second answer would be no, I'll just leave it at that, no. Okay.
Thank you. Senator Eggenbrod.
I think it starts with we got to control the expense and then determine how best to pay for it. I think we should look at impact fees, but as Mr. Hunt alluded to, I mean, that's a bigger question than simply a law. I mean, that's a constitutional amendment. But I think we need to, growth needs to pay for itself, and we need to be creative in making sure growth does pay for itself.
Thank you, Mr. Eggenbrod. I'm going to stay with you. Quick answer, is critical race theory, CRT, being taught in Idaho schools?
I have no doubt that there are occasions of critical race theory because there's humans throughout the country and throughout Idaho. I have yet to see any systemic critical race theory or that type of teaching in a systemic manner. Critical race theory, by definition, or by the definition that I understand, is the worst form of hatred, and there's no way that I would support that and would clear it out if I found that it was systemic.
Mr. Lenny.
What was the question again?
Is critical race theory being taught in Idaho schools?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the evidence is there if you look for it.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt.
Yes, it is. Critical race theory is a Marxist doctrine pitting class against class. It's teaching our kids to judge others by the color of their skin and not the content of their character. And it's here in Napa.
Mr. Roten.
And the research that I've seen says no, but we have to be vigilant of the creep, and we have to keep parents involved in these decisions and what's being taught to their children.
Thank you. Teddy?
Thank you very much. We have minute closing statements for each person. Mr. Angerbrow, we'll start with you and go left to right.
Thank you, and again, thank you to the Idaho Press, the Nampa Chamber of Commerce, and the City of Nampa for hosting this event this evening. As a lifelong Republican, I'm pro-First and Second Amendments, as well as pro-life. I back the blue and all first responders. My focus continues to be on the economy, our infrastructure, and education. We need all three to succeed. If elected, I will continue to serve the community by upholding my constitutional oath, my pledge to the Republican Party, and most importantly, my pledge to you, the citizens of Nampa and the state of Idaho, to always do my best to represent you. If you have any questions about me, my positions, my votes, please reach out to me by phone, email, or through my website at agenbrodforsenate.com. It's important that you have all the facts that you need to make an informed decision. I'm Jeff Agenbrod, and I'd like to thank you for your support. With your support, I look forward to continue to represent you and our shared Idaho values as your District 13 Senator. Thank you.
Mr. Lenny?
So, I got in this race because, like I said earlier, I believe Idaho's in trouble. We've seen an uptick in the consolidation of power by our elected officials from the governor's office all the way down. We've seen them messing with our kids. We've seen them messing with our medical decisions. We've seen them messing with our money. And enough is enough. It needs to stop. Like I said earlier, it's similar to my opening statement. When you have Republicans, elected Republicans, who don't abide by the state GOP platform, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. So that's why I'm running. And it's not just me. I'm endorsed by several groups, including some people in this room. So I got my 10-second thing, but votelenny.com. All right.
Mr. Hunt?
I believe in smaller government, cut spending, cut taxes. I believe in personal liberty. Parents should have some rights in regards to what their children are taught in schools. I'm a strong believer and practitioner of the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I believe in protecting the unborn. I believe that the bureaucracies and agencies have too much power. I've seen the overreach of government, especially over the last 2 years. And if I had been in the legislature, I would have been there when a few legislators tried to meet and put some controls on a runaway executive branch. It's gotten to the point where it's got to change. Our state government has grown its budget, doubled it in the last 6 years, from $7 billion to almost $14 billion this year.
Mr. Roden?
Yep. I am pro-gun and pro-life. I support education. I support the blue and all of the first responders, as well as citizens' money, keeping that in their pockets, lowering taxes. There's a lot at stake in May, and we need to start sending qualified Republicans to deal with real problems that the state may have. I want to work with the Republicans. I want to keep Idaho red. I want to keep us moving forward in a positive way. I want to be your next Idaho State House of Representative, District 13B. Thank you.
I want to thank all the candidates for their time today. I'm going to give them a round of applause, but don't go anywhere. So quick round of applause. Those are our candidates for District 13. I want to personally thank the Nampa Chamber of Commerce, the City of Nampa, and the staff for their time here today. I want to encourage everybody who's listening to visit idahopress.com/election and become an informed voter. The Idaho Press is leading an effort right now to increase turnout in our primary election, and Mitch has some closing comments.
No, Matt, a public thank you back to you and to Teddy. Great job moderating. Thank you to the Idaho Press for everything you're doing. Mayor and I had a side comment on the transition, how proud we are of Nampa. Not very many communities can do this with this much information, this many candidates, this heart of conversations, and it was civil, and we were all friends, and that's what we really appreciate about Nampa. So thank you to Amy, Rick, Mayor, the city, Idaho Press for partnering. Chamber was just happy to help promote this. Especially thank you to all the candidates, both these and those before, and then all those that came out. So some rough numbers, you know, there was about 150 people here tonight and about 100-ish online. So you could do the math, 250. Need to go tell the story to another 250, do another 250. So go vote, become educated. That's what the goal of all this was. Get to know the candidates more. Their information's out there. And as Matt said, all this information was recorded, which is really, really cool. If I was a candidate, I'd be grabbing this information and pushing it out to my friends and family. So I hope that everybody does that. It'll be on the Chamber website, Idaho Press, and the city. So thank you to everybody for everything. You're appreciated. Go vote.